he couldn't even escape or
So
anything. Now he's
already,
clean and
I can already
he's
answer your
grateful.
question. So consent only applies to people who are in a healthy mental state. If they're not in a healthy mental state, they can't consent. So if you're like addicted to drugs, you don't have the ability to consent in that way.
What about if you have Down syndrome?
How do you know the various spectrum of mental conditions where people
that's
can
literally
be addicted?
there's academic fields to define that. You can go ask the psychologist if you want.
That means nothing, bro.
It means if you're asking about a complicated academic field that answers that question, then go bother the complicated academic field. I don't really need to give you an answer because there's an academic field.
So you
that does
don't
that.
have an answer. Okay.
No, I do have an answer.
He's pointing experts.
That's such a weird way to respond to that.
No, it's a perfectly rational way. It means I don't want to bother with explaining this complicated field to you.
Not you, I meant him. Because it's like saying, like, how do you know how to treat these medical conditions for someone? And it's like, well, we have hospitals where there are people that are specially educated in these fields to know how to deal with this. And then they respond with, well, that means nothing to me.
Or I think it's response to be like, so you don't know how to do heart surgery, so therefore it's fake.
No. My response is that the scientists cannot always help these people because it's a spiritual problem as well.
They're not called scientists. They're called psychologists.
No. I'm saying that people can be addicted to sin as well. So an imposition of will.
Know that.
Well, I mean, sort of. So you can get addicted. You can get addicted to literally anything. That's sort of true. But addiction is a specific kind of a mental state.
People can help you by imposition of will, right? By imposing themselves.
No, again, so imposition of will would be a way to try to achieve the goal, but it would be immoral if there was another way that was less harmful that could achieve the same goal.
How do you know there is another way?
Well, if you're an all-powerful being, there's definitely another way. You can literally snap your fingers and just change it.
But how do you know that's the best way?
If it causes the least harm.
What's the clearest cut example of this?
Of which thing?
Well, the one I like is the death penalty, but which one least harm would you use?
I'm not sure. Like, I need more context to frame the question in my brain.
Well,
so, like,
the idea, if you want to reduce harm for the public, you take the criminal off the street.
Right.
You don't necessarily give them the death penalty right away. Then you say, well, what's better than the death penalty? Well, maybe lock them up for life. Right?
Sure. Yeah, that would be less immoral than like permanently ending their existence.
Yes.
So you think that God is immoral because he allowed sin in the world?
No, allowing sin is perfectly fine. So I have no problem with sin. I think sin is not bad, so I'm fine with sin. I think God is immoral for drowning millions of babies. I think he's immoral for destroying cities. I think he's immoral for turning people to salt against their will.
When you say millions of babies, what are you talking about?
Global flood. So like he flooded the earth.
No, I don't believe in a global flood.
Well, that's fine.
It was a local flood.
It's just an example. So if God forced other people to do things they didn't consent to doing, that would be immoral.
What would be a sin?
I'm saying to you, there is more evidence that there was a local flood.
I don't care. To me, it doesn't make a difference whether or not it was global or local. God drowned people against their will. That's immoral.
But they were evil. They
hated God. Still immoral. So this goes back to the death penalty example that was the other guy talked about. Like, is there a way to accomplish the goal?
So TJump, you believe in
one sec. So if you can accomplish the goal without literally ending their lives, then it's immoral to end their lives. So, for example, he could have just teleported them to their own universe, where they could live as sinfully as they wanted in their own universe, instead of drowning them to death. But he decided to drown them to death.
If God existed,
are you against death penalty?
Yes.
That wouldn't technically mean he ended their lives. He just put them in another position, like hell or heaven.
You, brother. So wait a second. Is body autonomy a sin?
Is bodily autonomy? I don't know. You mean like abortion?
Autonomy. Basic. No, well, we can go there, but what about fighting for your country?
Fighting for your country, killing anyone ever for any reason against their will is immoral. It can be justified, still immoral.
Usually, people that
But TJump, God doesn't kill though.
Yeah,
God just puts you in hell or heaven.
That's still killing. So if he ends your biological life, that's literally what killing is. Killing doesn't mean ending your consciousness permanently. If he's ending your biological life, that's killing.
Right, and if they still go to hell, that's eternal torture. So that's even worse.
Yes, so that would be worse. So he kills you, and then he sends you to another place you didn't consent to being. So that's two immoral things.
So if someone dies from old age, that's also murder from God's standpoint?
Yes, if God forced you to be in a world where you die of old age and you didn't consent to being a part of this world, then God has killed you.
But what if this world has a purpose, and by allowing that, he would get a maximally virtue. He would maximize virtue in those beings.
So if God forced you to be in this world that maximizes virtue and you didn't consent to be here, then you're a slave and that's immoral.
But what if I wanted to be?
Well, then it's fine. If you consent to being here, that's fine.
But
I mean,
life is always better than
but
not life.
No, that's definitely
okay,
not the case. Like literally suicide is a thing. Not living is better than many kinds of
They're
life.
mentally unstable.
No,
If
suicide is
Islam,
not caused by the mentally unstable.
T-Jump, if Islam is true, your argument fails because then it would be that we all consented to come here. We were shown our rights. So
I'm not sure what you're saying. So you're saying in Islam we all consented to be here?
yeah, so if Islam is true, doesn't your argument like go away?
Sure. If it's the case that we all consented to be here, then it would not be immoral for us to be here.
Okay.
Don't think that's how it works in the Quran, but okay.
So can I give an example? Another example?
Sure, go for it.
So if you play a piece of music like Claire Debussy to a 7-year-old girl, that
Wait.
human being is morally
so don't
better
use
than me.
anyone who is underage doesn't have the ability to consent. So try to use adults to make better examples.
Yeah, I'm trying to show to you how people that don't go through struggle and pain and don't experience suffering cannot experience some goods as much as some people that
Well, that's demonstrably false. So literally, if the world I'm saying is that we have exactly this world as it is with God, and you could choose to be here if you wanted to, or you could opt out. So you can choose all of the suffering and all of the growth, or you can choose, nah, I'm going to go to my own universe with my own thing. So all of the benefits that you could ever imagine under a God-based universe, you can get in this better world that I'm talking about, because this world that we live in now is one of the options you could choose to go to.
But firstly, in philosophy, greatest possible world is incoherent, right?
No.
It's like stating the highest number. You can always add one more.
No.
Right. So
because the best of all possible world isn't cumulative. It's not like the most number of good actions. The best of all possible world is the world having one extra law of physics that's impossible to force people to do what they don't consent to doing. It's not about a number of people. It doesn't make a difference.
So do you think a world with one happy person is better than a world with two happy persons?
The number of people here doesn't make a difference.
Wow, that's the first. That's a first, because
that's what possible worlds means.
Well, I would say that a world with two happy person is better, like logically.
The world isn't better. No, like the world in the state of affairs is the same either way.
Yeah,
just
there's
the number
more
of people who are
happiness.
happy. The number of happiness isn't what makes it better. So just having lots of happy people, like having a world of just people on cocaine and who are all happy, doesn't necessarily make it a better world. So like, I would say that a world where people are playing Dark Souls and it's very, very hard and they're very, very frustrated, but they're doing it consensually, is a better world than people who are all forced to have cocaine and be happy all the time. So consent here is what makes it important, not level of happiness.
You're a finite being. You're not omniscient. How can you know what's the greatest possible world when you don't have access to all of the variants?
Because I know what objective morality is. So I know it's a better world is one where it's impossible to force people to do things they don't consent to. And God could have done that and didn't. So God's immoral.
That leads to absurdities.
There's no absurdity. I see no absurdity. Seems like you're making stuff up.
No, and what you said, like you have your own planet, I see that as arbitrary, and I see that as
well. That's not an absurdity. So there's a difference between absurdity and arbitrary. Arbitrary means determined based off of no system or set of rules, and this is determined by a set of system and set of rules. So it's literally not arbitrary, and it's not absurd, because absurd means that there's some like logical contradiction or nomenological contradiction, and there's neither of those in anything I said. So it's neither arbitrary nor absurd. You just seem to be making up words you don't like and then trying to attribute it to my model because you don't like it. But
No, it seems like you're spoiled, like a spoiled brat that wants everything, right?
no, I just want morality. So
Are we down to the God made us, so he has the right? And how could we be
we
so
were there
indignant?
earlier. So that
Yeah,
was
we
that
did
was
that.
that was we went through that like an hour ago.
Well, I would say that the most that God could give to man, he gave by becoming a man and remaining forever as a God-man in all worlds,
Well,
visible and
that's
invisible.
a garbage argument. So, like, that seems like kind of like the Greek gods or the Roman gods doing very human things that don't actually solve any problems. It's very shallow and immature. Like, if there was an all-powerful being, he could actually like make a difference in the world and actually solve the problems. So, him giving himself up to become human or whatever, kind of is a crap solution that doesn't solve anything. Like,
Yeah, he gave us dignity. He
No,
raised the
no,
human
no,
body. He
no.
can
No.
transform us. He
That's
can share with
kind
us.
of yeah. Again,
Yeah,
that's
but
garbage.
then-
Still exists.
TJump,
so-
can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
These guys that, like for these guys at Allah and Gali, Sky Daddies and all that, do you think it's a waste of time to try to decide what's outside of our system because we are a product of the system, like of either like a subset or and we're trying to determine what's outside of our set? Does that make sense?
No, I mean, because I think we're trying to determine what is in reality, and we are in reality. So we're never trying to determine something outside of our set in that way.
Like if
TJump.
we're within the time-space continuum, we're trying to decide, like, we're trying to figure out if there's something outside of that.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Like, and we're trying to, is that a futile venture?
No, physicists do that all the time. Like the consensus in physics is that space and time are emergent from things that are more fundamental that aren't space and time. So we do that in physics. It's to try and figure out what's outside of space and time. Like it's not in any way ridiculous. As long as you have some way that can differentiate imagination from reality, it's perfectly reasonable.
Okay, who can I like start for an amateur like me? Who can I read? Like, give me like one person or something I can look to start reading about this. Like
Sean Carroll.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Yep.
What are some of the best arguments you've heard for God? If you can say that.
The absolute best evidence I've ever heard for God comes from Hinduism. It's the argument that in the Bhagavad Gita, it predicted the age of the earth was 4.3 billion years old. And that is a damn close prediction. So a book 6,000 years ago, accurately predicting the age of the earth is a very good prediction. That's the best prediction or prophecy I've ever heard in any religion. That's the best evidence of God. But since it's just one thing, it's most likely just a lucky guess. But that's better than anything else in any other religion for sure.
I mean, Islamic literature has like hundreds of thousands.
No, all of the Islamic and all of the Christian prophecies are absolute garbage. They're so ambiguous they could be interpreted as anything. None of them are specific. The Hindu one literally hold up. So the Hindu prediction gives an actual number. It says 4.32 billion years old. It says an exact number. It says this is how old the earth is.
TJump, was it a prediction or a statement?
If it gives the age of the earth, that's a prediction. I don't know what you mean.
Does it say that it was, or does it say that it could have been?
It says it was. It says it was exactly this old. It was created exactly this time.
Okay. Do you think something needs to have a number to be accurate and falsifiable?
No. Hold up one sec. So 1 second. I'm going to answer Bang first. So no, it doesn't need to be given an exact number as long as it's precise enough. The number is just a way to be essentially the most precise you can be, which is why it would be better if you gave an exact number and it was right.
If
that would
God
be better.
existed, wouldn't he give you a precise number?
Right, Nico, wait. Well, I'm saying, like, as long as a prophecy is falsifiable and accurate in a sense, that'll be like evidence, right?
Yes, it would. Unfortunately, all the ones in the Quran and all the ones in Christianity are vague and ambiguous.
So I'm saying, if someone in the 7th century makes a geographic prediction that
So Bang, I literally have said this like 3 times. All of the predictions in the Quran, all of the predictions in the Hadith. Don't interrupt. So all of the predictions in the Quran, all of the predictions in the Hadith, all of the predictions in Christianity, they're all vague and ambiguous. So they are not predictions. They are not things that count as evidence because they're ambiguous. For a prediction or prophecy to count as evidence, it has to be precise, unambiguous, and specific. And then it becomes
quality
evidence.
predictions.
Well, if you want to fully study
So hold up. So it's not about quality predictions, because if you make a prediction that's ambiguous, like I say, there is something in that box. Now, no matter what is in the box, I'm going to be right as long as it's not nothing. So each of the different possible things that could be in the box is its own separate prediction, because my prediction is ambiguous. So the reason it needs to be specific is it needs to limit the number of possible things that can count as a successful confirmation. So if I just predict something that can have a billion different things happen and they all count as a successful accounting of whatever my prediction is, then it's not evidence. That's why it has to be specific, because for each of the different possible variations counts as an additional prediction you're making, and if one of them is right, the others are all going to be wrong.
Okay, I get it. Well, I mean, you told me. I mean, you interrupted me. Told me not to interrupt you. I was trying to finish. I'm not trying to like, make an argument. I'm just trying to ask you how
That's
you
fine.
see a prophecy, right? So I'm saying if someone in the 7th century were to make a claim that, for example, the land that he's in, right, like the land, the Arabian Peninsula, used to be a land of greenery when at this moment and long before as well, it was just a desert. There was no like rivers, there's no like greenery, right? And he says this land was or basically that this land is going to become green again, right? Which indicates that at a point in time, anciently ago, it was actually filled with greenery and lands, which is what geography, which is what
Can you skip to my shorter
yeah, I'm
so
trying
is
to,
your
I'm trying to
argument
say
that
the claim is very accurate and is falsifiable.
wait, so is your claim that a guy claimed that this land will become greenery again, which then implies two things: one, that it was green in the past, and two, that it's green in the future? And if that happens, is that evidence? Is that what your argument is?
Yeah.
No, it's because it's too ambiguous. So like
No,
yes, it is. It's literally has a time span of infinity. So infinity time in the future, this part of the land could become green, which one isn't very spectacular because we know that. Hold up! Don't interrupt! Don't interrupt, Bang. I muted you for this before. Try to just wait until I finish. The fact that it gives no like end time, and it could be any time in the future this might happen, and because it's a phenomenon we already expect, that we know greenery does expand under certain conditions. Neither of those two things are going to count as evidence because it's too ambiguous, because it just says any time in the future, and two, because it's a thing that we already know happens where greenery spreads. So neither of those are spectacular in any way. That's pretty mundane. Like if I predict at some point in time,
we do know that after we had the tools to actually know these things. I'm saying, my point was about the claim of the past, right? When you said again, it indicates the past.
So
right?
Because we know that plants. Hold up. So because we know plants grow and the like forest line recedes and grows all the time, saying that this area used to be covered in greenery or whatever is a mundane claim. You would be right about that literally anywhere on the planet you were. So that's not actual evidence. That's literally true.
True. Mountains don't have like
yes. So all mountains had greenery on top of them before they became mountains. Yes. Everywhere on the planet there is land.
Before they became mountains. I'm saying if someone in the 7th century would stand in a mountain and say this mountain was green.
So if you say if you say that this land I'm standing on used to be green, you would be correct anywhere you were on the planet. That is such an ambiguous statement that it can be interpreted to mean before it was a mountain. So because that statement, this land was green, before whatever, that statement could be applied since it was a mountain, or before it was a mountain, or before that when it was Pangea and it was all just one big island. So that statement, this land was green, is so ambiguous, it's a bad prediction. It was
specific
evidence.
to the Arabian Peninsula, which is actually
it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. Still ambiguous, still not evidence. To make it a successful prediction, you got to predict something we don't know yet. Predicting land had green stuff on it is a very mundane thing we already know about. Predicting the age of the earth is 4.3 billion years ago, that's a very, very good prediction. So like predicting land will have plants on it is something that happens all the time, all over the world. So if any point in time you predict this part of land will or has had green plants on it, is like predicting that you've had rain hit your head at some point in time in the past. It happens all the time. Predicting the age of the earth, which has only happened once. Hold up. Predicting the age of the earth, which has only been created once, you get one guess. There's no repeatability. It hasn't happened multiple times. You don't have multiple chances of getting it right. You got one shot. So if you get a good answer there, that's a really good prediction. Predicting something that happens all the time. Hold up, Bang. Again, stop interrupting. I'm just going to mute you. If you predict something that happens all the time, like grass or green things covering a specific land, which happens when it covers and recedes and covers and recedes, happens all over the world all the time, you are highly likely to be right about that. Just like if I'm right, you had rain hit your head sometime in the past and sometime in the future. Not a prediction. Too ambiguous.
Okay.
Something we already know, not evidence.
Yeah,
All
well,
right,
that
but
doesn't sound very
T-
ambiguous.
wait,
But
wait,
just,
wait,
just,
wait.
just
But
let me
then,
respond,
wait a
please.
second.
It doesn't, I'm just saying it doesn't sound very ambiguous to someone who lived in the 7th century, had no tools to actually know any geographical facts, such as like
All of those
greeneries
things are already new.
or deserts. No, wait, what? No.
Yeah,
All
They
those
were not
things-
knowing.
T-Jump,
There was
T-Jump.
no knowledge of
All of those
at
things
that
were
time.
already known. They already knew all of those things. They already knew
You could
forests.
say that
Hold
about
up, hold up,
math.
hold
You
up,
could say
hold
it's
up,
going to
hold up,
equal into
hold up.
something, and
Hold up. So, Bang, the fact that forests and land goes in and out and changes geography, that was already known. That was known thousands of years before anybody was in the Arabic Peninsula. We already knew plants did
Yeah,
this.
where
So,
was that known?
everywhere. It's literally a fact
No,
of
where?
freaking...
No, you just
Stop,
asserting.
stop.
Where's that at?
This is something Muslims do all the time to deflect. They want specific examples of very commonly known facts. Waste of time.
That's
Yes,
kind of
we
racist,
know-
huh?
No, it's not. It's literally not a race either.
I'm
So,
joking.
Stop talking. Holy shit. Stop interrupting. So the fact that we knew
I
in
had
history,
to get a mod
oh
that
my
get you
God.
on mute me. You mute people.
Shut up. So because we know that land and plants grow and move all the time, saying anybody predicting that is already a known fact. We've known this for thousands of years because people have had to move and adjust to these things before we were agricultural societies. We literally knew this was going to happen. This is a very common fact. Don't need to provide evidence for it. You can just Google it yourself. Anybody else? Okay, pathologist, what did you want to say?
What about expansion of universe?
What about it?
In Quran it says that we are expanding the universe.
Yeah. What does that say about? Does it say dark energy? Does it say a specific rate? Does it say anything specific, or is it just pretty much ambiguous?
Say that it's what it says something else.
It just says that.
So that it doesn't say anything specific. It's not a prediction. Doesn't say how or why. No time frame. No rate. Just ambiguous. So
it says the universe was spread like something. That's what it says.
So yeah, super ambiguous. Not a prediction.
Video.
I'm not going to look at
DMs.
it. I don't look at DMs.
Why?
I don't look at DMs.
It's a great video because it shows how dense the prophecies are actually, typological.
All of the
and
prophecies have been
patterns.
proven to be ambiguous, and that's something that many scholars have gone through. It's not in any way evidence.
Yeah, I'm not talking about formal like prophecies when prophets say something will happen. Rather, the patterns in the covenants that repeat.
Right. So all of everything in the Quran, everything in the Hadith, everything in the Bible, all of it is ambiguous. None of it counts as predictions or science.
That's wrong.
Yes, it is. That's
Okay,
the case. Facts.
I will prove it later.
Did you actually study
Yes,
like
I did study
scholars
this.
like
Yes.
Brent Petrie or Scott
Yes, I
Hahn?
have studied the scholars on this. Yes, it is ambiguous. That's why it's not taken seriously in the field
I
of
asked
history.
specific names because of that.
I don't need to.
Scott
I don't
Hahn
need to
or
study
Brent
specific names. I've studied the field and the consensus in the field, so I know in the field
Hey,
they're
T-
considered ambiguous.
Well, what
T-Jump,
about
Yeah,
earlier
but
you
you
mentioned-
want evidence, and I'm sending you stuff, right? So
I'm already very
why
well
wouldn't you watch
acquainted
it?
on the field. I'm not interested in researching more ambiguous prophecies. They're pretty debunked pretty easily. So
okay, what about two waters
I don't think you're
do not
if you
what
think,
about two waters they don't mix together, about the two
Salt,
seas?
Hold up. So he asked about the two waters that don't mix. We can literally see that. We literally saw that thousands of years before the Quran. So it's something everyone already knew at the time.
No one actually reached that point in sea.
Yes, they did. We literally have a coastline that has fresh and salt water that we can literally see from standing on the coastline. That was extremely common knowledge back then.
It
Yeah,
happens in rivers.
brackish
In
water is
Passau,
common
in Passau in Germany, it happens too.
Yeah, it happens all over the world. It's a very common feature
Yeah, it's called brackish water. Look it up.
yes.
Exactly.
And earlier,
Yeah,
you
all
mentioned
the other
expansion.
like evidence, they actually go deeper into science. But if you like, for example, about the mountains, that they are
No, the
put there
Quran.
so
The Quran
that
has no valid science in it. It's nothing but myths and legends and ambiguities. It's not a way to assess science. Most of it's scientifically inaccurate. Many scientists have gone through this. It's not a source of evidence.
It's not real, dude. It's not.
May
valid.
I address something that was said earlier?
those kind
May I
of
address
evidence.
TJumps, why do
actually-
people believe this horse poop like the Quran?
Hey,
and all
hey,
that?
hey!
Like, why do they?
Let the other people finish first, because
can I address something that was brought up earlier?
Yes, you can go next. Quran, what were you let Quran Way finish his statement?
I was just saying, like, for example, about the mountains, that it says that the mountains were put so that the earth does not, shift or shake, and that's exactly the functionality of the mountains, which you only know if you study the geology.
No, the mountains don't do that. They're literally mountains do not do that.
People like this will get a tag in the future, I'm sure.
So
yeah, I'm gonna write an article and with references to scientific papers. Then we'll talk. Like I don't really have much.
Sure, go for it.
But what about?
He's talking about the Titanic plates.
Hold
He's talking about the Titanic plates rubbing up against each other, making mountains. That's what he's talking about.
I think you mean tectonic.
Yeah, so mountains do not hold up. So mountains do not prevent the world from shaking at all. They're a response. They're caused by the world shaking. So literally, that's the opposite of what mountains do. Who is next? Who else wanted to say something?
I was talking about earlier. He said something about the expansion. This is from Surah 5147, and it's talking about specifically the translation. The only translation that says expansion or expander, we are its expanders, is a 1997 retranslation of the Quran into English. The original translations say nothing about expansion or expander. They just talk about the vastness of space or the vastness thereof or vast extent. It says nothing about expansion.
Yeah, you're right. What if you were going against? All right, but what if you were going against somebody that's a Mormon and that has Joseph Smith and has made prophecies, and tells you that they have proof of these prophecies coming true?
Okay, what are the prophecies?
Not such a long time ago.
Okay, what are the prophecies?
Well, anything that Joseph Smith put on,
So what I would ask is, what are the prophecies? Please show me the evidence. That's what I'd ask.
Oh my God, there's so many. I mean, anytime he was alive, it was a prophet. Every holiday was.
You're gonna have to actually show it. Yeah, you're not saying anything. Like if someone says they have prophecies that can tell the future, I'm going to ask, okay, show me. I want to see them. Give me the evidence. That's what I'm going to say to anybody.
There's work. There's work next week.
There's work next. Okay, so prophecy. No, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm not trolling.
I'm
not trolling.
Hold up. So
I'm on a job that's going to go for 3 years. I know that there's going to be work.
Stop. I'm going to mute you. So predictions have to be of something we don't already expect. So if I predict the sun is going to rise tomorrow, that isn't evidence of the spaghetti monster because it's predicting something we already know. So for something to count as evidence of a prediction, you have to predict something about the world we don't already know or expect yet.
I'm pouring concrete tomorrow. We ordered the trucks.
Okay, we already expect that.
Concrete truck could crash.
Okay.
No, over $150,000 just in concrete. I want to talk about the workers.
That's not an argument. We don't need to discuss concrete. Concrete's in here too.
And then the next day after that, I'm going to tell you it's going to be dry.
Shut up, Bart.
Okay, so again, Bart, you're just making predictions of things we already know or already expect. We have to predict something we don't know yet. So like I said earlier, the best evidence provided by any religion is the prediction by Hinduism that the world is 4.3 billion years old. That's a very good prediction made 6,000 years ago before we had any idea how old the Earth was. So because it was a predicting something we didn't know yet, and didn't see all over the place. Like seeing someone pour concrete, we see that all over the place. That's not a novel prediction. It's a prediction like saying the sun will rise tomorrow. It's a very commonplace thing. So you have to predict something we don't expect or don't know about the world yet.
Okay, you said that the mountains appeared as a result of shaking of Earth. So basically, that's admitting that the functionality of mountains.
No, mountains have no functionality. They're not functional. They don't have a function. Like the only function you could say they might have would be.
Let me use a different word. So mountains do stop the Earth from shaking.
No, they don't. They literally do not do that.
they're caused by the collision of the tectonic plates.
Yeah, they caused
They're
and
not
then they
stopping
stop.
it. No, they're a
They
result
don't. They
of
don't
it.
stop anything. The mountains do not
Okay,
stop things.
do they slow it down?
No, they have
Nope.
no impact.
No.
No,
In this
earthquakes
case,
travel.
why don't mountains grow then?
They do.
grow.
They do.
All right, so Joseph Smith prophesized he prophesized something in the Civil War, the American Civil War, the well-known millennial prophecies related
And
to the
remember, they
Civil
knew
War.
the mountains were growing in the 10th century.
I just gave you a prophecy of.
What's the prophecy?
Well,
He said,
Joseph
hold up,
Smith is a
hold up,
known
hold up,
charlatan.
hold up. It doesn't matter. Even if he's a known charlatan, that doesn't prove he's wrong. So, what did he predict about the Civil War?
North and the South were gonna clash and fight, whatever.
Okay, well, that was
Take this
extremely
a long
well known
time.
because they've been fighting since the beginning of slavery. So, like, that's pretty obvious. So, predicting
Yeah,
something
but
that's obvious
no,
is not evidence.
This is the way people live for very hundreds of years, like 200
Right.
years.
Right? So,
They had no idea this would actually
yes,
go
they
down.
literally did have an idea. Lots of people had an idea. If you look at the time period, the warnings of the Civil War and people talking about it were actually really common from before Joseph Smith. This was a pretty obvious thing that was going to happen, kind of like war between Ukraine and Russia. People were talking about it way before it happened.
Yeah, but the day it happened and where it happened, he prophesied that.
There was rumors about UK and Russia may in the future have a conflict back when I first got a Discord account for the first time ever.
So yeah, if Joseph Smith actually predicted the day and location of the first battle, that would be great. I haven't seen any evidence of that.
Oh, someone will scream.
Okay, it's all about religions, but what about God? Are you atheist?
Yes, I'm an atheist.
What about intelligent design? Is that something happened by accident?
Like we intelligently designed phones and stuff. The universe isn't intelligently designed. It happened by deterministic forces.
Right. Can I address that too? Because
Oh.
I think the hallmark of intelligent design is efficient simplicity. You do not see that in nature. Nature is complex to the point where everything looks like a Rube Goldberg machine of inefficiency and mutation. This is the hallmark of incidental, haphazard design.
So wait. Are you sure you're an atheist?
If you look at, not to mention, if you look at the genetics of every life form on Earth, there's screw ups, mistakes, short outs.
Exactly. It's extremely
Cancer in every
wasteful.
one of them.
Okay. All right. So
Watchmaker
TJumps,
fallacy.
is there any fact that you know that doesn't reference the necessity of God?
Potatoes exist. That does not reference the necessity of God.
Okay. So then you have the positive belief that there is no God, correct?
My telephone
Yes.
exists.
I can go with either. Like I can go with the fact that I simply lack belief, but I'm happy to hold the positive position God does not exist.
Okay, and how did you come to that understanding? I mean,
By looking at the probability of human beliefs corresponding to reality. Most human beliefs and ideas they come up with don't correspond to reality. So any belief that a human comes up with that has not provided some kind of justification that it corresponds to reality is rational to conclude it's just an imaginary figment of people's imagination.
so does quantum physics.
No, quantum physics has evidence. It's like empirical evidence has been demonstrated.
Yeah, have you ever heard of particle accelerators?
No, well, exactly, and you would have to put it basically in its own containment. Like you'd have to be the vacuum.
What?
Without quantum physics, computers wouldn't work. We need quantum physics to design modern CPUs.
I think he's just saying things.
No, hold up. That's an argument that most people use. That's like, we can demonstrate quantum effects both locally in our labs and when we look out in the universe, we can see quantum effects. So it's something we can observe in labs and outside of them.
Actually, I can demonstrate quantum effects using vacuum tubes, radio tubes.
In labs, that would be the in labs example. God, we need
Exactly. So that's what I mean. In a controlled area, in a controlled environment.
It's
not like they're demonstrating it in 40 light years away.
No, we can do both.
Corresponds to it.
So we can do both. We can demonstrate it in a lab, and we can observe the same effects in the universe 40 light years away. We can observe
We're
both.
only guessing that
No.
in different galaxies, everything is the same as this galaxy.
Okay, so if
No.
you use a tape measure
Or star or
in a
solar
lab,
system.
if you use a tape measure in a lab, does that mean the tape measure doesn't work when you're building a house outside the lab? That's your argument right now.
And yeah, when
Wait,
it comes
repeat that? Repeat that?
when you use a tape measure in the lab to measure something, does that tape measure suddenly not work out in the field if you measure something on a job site?
That's what your argument sounds like you're trying to say, in that if it's contained within a lab, the experiment, it doesn't equate to reality outside the lab. Is that the argument you're trying to make?
It's a good
Well,
example.
I mean, that's happens all the time. What are you talking about? They test cars in the crash dummies, right? And they give it a rating, right?
they
but
don't,
then when this car goes out into the real world, right? They actually realize that it flips and it because it didn't go through these it didn't go through every single situation. So because there's a regulation,
really your
and a
analogy,
threshold,
bro?
because there's a regulation and a threshold, we're only going to find out once this vehicle is actually on the road.
We're talking about a tape measure.
What the fuck?
No, the way they derived the theory behind the tests is by observing reality. They didn't come up with this in a lab. They observed reality, and then they tested things in a lab that work in a lab. So it's not that now we have to prove that it exists in reality. That's how we guessed that it exists anyway.
No, I mean there's bridges that fell in this situation. There's faulty
literally
materials.
doesn't matter. Literally does not matter.
Is a lab not reality?
So we measure frequencies of light. We measure that when light is of a red frequency, it has a specific hertz rating. And when we look into the universe, we can see light has the specific hertz rating, and then it has the same energy level. We're measuring the energy of light. We're not building anything. It's not like we build bridges.
No.
Who cares?
Light has
Who cares? It literally doesn't matter. So we can measure things in reality here in a lab, and we can measure the same things out in the universe. They don't change, because that would mean that the entire thing, like all of the laws of physics, just suddenly change over there than over here. And
So then why do we bring animals up to the space station?
Hold up.
Why do we have
The
them
lab
up
is in
there?
the universe.
Oh my God, you're so dumb. So bringing animals to space stations is a way to test how
Just
organisms...
mute him.
Stop. So is a way to test how organisms survive in zero-G environments, because we can't test that here. We can't go to we can't create a zero-G environment here on Earth. We have to go outside of Earth to get away from the giant gravity source, the planet.
So that doesn't make any sense. Because how did we come up with a spacesuit?
We actually can't use
No, it's going to work.
commercial jets.
As someone who's worked in one of the companies who literally designed the original space.
It is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking
Bro, you're
when
way
I
too loud.
see
You're way too loud.
Christians trying to use science to justify their like metaphysical. It is heartbreaking.
I'm not using science at all. I actually am against it.
That's even worse.
You're against science, okay?
That's even cringier.
Not scientism, not science itself, but scientism. You know, people.
Well, I'm not for scientism either. I don't think scientism is correct either. So what?
Yeah, scientism is stupid. That's why I study the scientific method.
I have a question for you.
Scientism is dumb.
Yeah, but you don't have the measurements or the know-how to test anything that these people say.
Sure do.
How do you guys infer how
so-
do you guys infer design from like everyday life? Like if you see like a car, how do you know that's like a design? Like what about this tells you that it was designed?
There's no natural process that can do it on its own, and there is a process by which a designer can make it. Therefore, it's reasonable to infer a designer made it.
Yeah, but like I'm not making like I'm not saying you just see a car like for the first time, like you see
Right.
something with information and complexity, right? How
No,
do you know?
so information is in things that aren't designed. Information is physical information. Shannon information theory, this paper is 1958 paper. Information isn't in a car. So when we see a car, we say, is there any known natural process that can make this? If not, is there any known design process that can make this? If the answer to both is no, then you can't conclude either. If the answer is yes to one, then you can clear whichever one the answer is yes to.
Yeah, but I mean it's possible that it could happen by chance, like a car could happen by chance.
Sure.
No.
Yeah, so I'm
Yes,
saying like
yes, it is
what
possible.
differentiates us from looking at a car and saying it's a design and looking at DNA and saying it's not a design.
Cars DNA has a natural process that we know it comes about by.
No, but like the natural process is how it functions, is not where it came from.
No,
It's not it's not
we know
it, like
we know a
it is not
natural
explained by
process
itself.
of where it came from, not how it works, of where it came from.
We know it comes from natural material that we know that, but like I'm talking
No,
about
like we know how RNA can form on clay and reproduce and combine to create reproducing models from non-reproducing models,
Yeah.
and RNA can make DNA. So we have a natural
Yeah,
process.
but we also know that cars could have that too, right?
No.
Cars could come by chance. Yes.
Okay, well, I didn't say anything about chance there. I said there are natural physical processes that determine these molecules bind in this way to produce these other molecules called DNA. That doesn't exist for cars. There's no part where iron gets smelted into steel and then gets formed into the shell of a car. That doesn't happen. There's no natural process.
Have we done enough studies for that? Have we done enough studies to actually look at that and say like it could? I mean, we don't
need to say it couldn't. It doesn't matter if it couldn't. Are there any known natural processes that do these things? No. Are there known processes that do these things for DNA? Yes.
I think they could, like iron ore, right? Could get melted by some lava,
Yes,
right?
it
And then
could.
like this lava could, and then all the processes could just happen by chance for like a billion years, right? And then like a car could function, like we could have a functioning car.
Yes, it could, but we don't see that happening.
Yeah, but we didn't see like DNA self-replicating.
Yes, we
DNA
literally
cells,
do. All of the
cells.
processes that form DNA, we literally do see them in a lab. That's what most
we
of
see
the
the
field.
individual components.
No, we literally see the processes that make them. RNA forming on clay and forming corpuscles that shape cells and then making self-reproducing molecules. We literally see all of this.
Weren't you
Okay,
just
we
talking about,
only
weren't you just saying
the
that the
problem is that you will keep
individual?
making claims. You would just keep making claims. Like I'm saying, we don't have any evidence of.
No, we literally have evidence of all
of the components coming together. Like we can know each individual component and how it would form, right? But we don't have an observation of all those components arranging themselves in such a manner. We don't have evidence of it.
Yeah, actually, we have lots of evidence of pretty much all of that.
Okay, no, we don't.
So yes, we literally do.
Kind of common for that.
Yeah.
So like biology,
And
I have
so
say,
the world
where is it?
scratches their head.
Yeah,
where
well,
is
I mean,
it?
I don't believe that. I mean, fine. If you're willing to, I don't think
First,
I don't think
Maybe that makes you sinful. I don't know. That could be a sin.
Hold up. New Scientist, First Life, the search for the first replicator. It goes through every academic paper in the progress of the field of abiogenesis and which ones count as evidence and why. And you can literally read about them. It's very common.
Sure. I mean, sure.
I'll
you can say
post
that,
it.
but, yeah.
No, I'm not saying this. It's literally an article that literally gives you all the evidence.
Literally, yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah,
Yes.
literally how all
Yeah,
the
they had
components.
they had all the evidence for steady space also, and we're
Yeah,
going with the Big Bang now.
yeah.
No, they
okay,
literally
how-
didn't. So that was disproven. So there you go.
What
You can go check it out.
what you're gonna send is gonna show me how all of the we have a visual representation of how all the components, right, form in.
No, we don't need that. We literally don't
need.
need that. So again, we have
We
all
don't
of
need
the
that.
processes.
Are you
that
using
can do
literally
this.
correctly?
Doesn't matter.
Why would you
Who
need
cares about
Are
semantics?
you literally not using
Stop,
literally
stop.
correctly?
I don't give a shit about semantics. Don't give me the bullshit about semantics.
No,
and
I'm
literally.
just
I
saying.
don't care. I don't give
Because
a
you're saying
shit.
literally every few
I
seconds.
don't give a fuck. Shut the fuck up. Semantics get muted. Get the
He's
fuck
literally
out.
saying literally every second.
So stick to the argument, not the semantics. I don't give a shit about your semantics. So I posted an article that gives you a lot of the evidence that indicates the processes and the novel predictions of how the first life originated and what evidence is that indicates that it was abiogenesis, which is the consensus in all the field. I posted it in the guest text.
Okay.
And look up the Planet Simulator.
Planet Simulator?
Yeah.
Wait, I don't think this article goes through all the. I don't see all the components being mentioned there and how they're. I don't think a 2000.
Bang! Shut the fuck up. You don't need every single component. You just need a plethora of evidence that shows the processes that did all of the things, and that's what it provides. I don't need to give you every single piece, just enough evidence. Like I don't need to show you every single brick of the pyramids to show that they're the pyramids.
I like the denial before looking though. That's always good. It doesn't say that because I know before I've read it, it doesn't say that.
Doesn't say what?
Oh no, the article, denial of the article before we've read the article.
Sorry, where's the article?
Guest chat, guest text, very bottom.
And what's the subject?
Or abiogenesis and origin of life.
And the planet simulator is fun too.
Bang, I already addressed your text chat. It doesn't need to explain how every single component works. It just needs to explain different parts in the process. Again, you don't literally need every single process or every single part. That's what an idiot has, like, show me how every single part in the car works. Like, I don't need to do that. If I can show you how the engine works, I can show you it moves. I don't need to show you how every single bolt in the car works.
Well, you would because every single part is essential. Every single part of the car would be essential for the car to function. Yes.
You don't need to do that.
But you don't think every single part of the cell is essential for it to function?
No, there's this thing called junk DNA.
Do you need the
I didn't hear the answer.
to be present? Okay, do you need the upholstery to be present for you to move
I didn't.
within the vehicle?
Well, he's asking for an analogy. Hold up.
Do you not think that every single...
Stop. No, there is lots of junk DNA in cells. Not every part of the cell is needed. There's large portions.
That's just this term you use is so outdated. Like, bro.
Here's
there's no junk DNA, bro. There's no junk DNA.
The point is, somebody somewhere does know every bolt.
Try to get information from people on Discord about science when you could go and study some science and actually look these things up and figure it out, right? Because the facts are out there, like just huge and massive amounts of facts that back up all these things that you guys.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's no such thing as junk DNA.
Yes, there is.
This term is not used in academia anymore.
Prove it to us.
This term is not used in academia anymore.
Well, no, you said the name was outdated. You didn't say that the process or the thing that he was actually talking about.
The name entails the idea or the expectation.
Hold up. One sec. Stop. Junk DNA was never a term used in academia. It's called non-coding DNA. Junk DNA is this public term that they use. It was never like a technical term. So junk DNA refers to non-coding DNA.
Yeah, but even non-coding DNA has functions. It just doesn't actively
no one
express
said it
proteins.
literally had no function. It obviously does things. Those things don't necessarily produce any benefit in the cell, though.
No, they do.
No, they don't.
All these non-coding DNA collectively
stop. No, they don't. The ENCODE project showed that they bind to things. They never actually do anything with the binding. So the ENCODE project that shows that they have function, those functions do nothing to benefit the cell, even though they do something. So no, those functions of binding to certain molecules do not in any way benefit the cell.
This is ridiculous. I mean, like since like the past month, like we keep discovering new functions to these things that we thought that did not have functions.
Yes,
like,
function just means
biology keeps going on every single day. Like,
function does not mean
doesn't have a function.
Function does not mean it does a benefit to the cell. Function means it binds to some molecule in the cell.
Right.
So yes, there are lots of different functions, and that they bind to different molecules and have different effects. That doesn't mean the effects are good or beneficial or useful.
We'll go back to the car comparison. You can have functioning things in your car that are not essential to the car running.
Oh, there's lots of stuff in a car that doesn't require for making a car run. Seat belts, the car run without those.
That's the argument.
This isn't semantics. What is this? Stupidity? I can't remember.
No, semantics.
Semantics is. They're not arguing semantics.
No, the point is that the life it shows a plethora of inefficient wastefulness that does not indicate design. The hallmark of design is efficient.
Well, no, so Bang's argument is that all of the parts of a DNA have function, and function is needed for the cell, and so any part that doesn't if lost would lead to some like irreducible complexity kind of thing, which is false. Like irreducible complexity can be explained by a result of random processes without a designer just fine.
Yeah, and the design, they're thinking about things from the top down. The design, the evolution works from the bottom up, so it's incremental changes. So it could have a diminished function or a completely different function with lesser components. But as you add more components, the function changes over time and includes more function over time. It's from the bottom up, not from the top down.
It's both top down and bottom up. It's a trade-off.
I like the angels from Africa too. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Did you hear
And
what I
strike,
said?
and strike, and strike, and strike, and strike.
Hey, did you hear what I said?
Hold up.
As silly as the
Hold
analogy
up. What was the guy who asked?
Don't
Did you
don't
hear what I
just say
said?
that it's not just bottom up. It's both top down and bottom up. It's a trade off.
Well, what would indicate from top down?
Well, epigenetics kind of, I think, would sort of be top down, but it originally started as just bottom up. So the top down.
Yeah, that's what I don't think I'm describing.
Yeah, I think he's bringing up a slightly different topic. But yes, there is top-down selection in things in genes like sexual selection, epigenetics. Those kinds of things do have an effect. The environmental effects, natural selection. But
not just
top
that
down,
level,
top down in the way he was referring to is like a god did the designing is what he meant.
Yeah. And
well, there are systems level processes that actually affect molecules that then affect genes.
I would love to see
heart
how
physiology, for example.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I would love to see how creationists explain ERVs.
God did it.
Is that recreational vehicles?
No, endogenous retrovirus.
I know.
Like it's clear indication that things are you can't pass down endogenous retroviruses without evolution. Like it has to be passed down genetically.
That's not so. Technically, it's possible that the virus infected multiple species at the exact same point in their DNA, hundreds of times.
At the same exact chromosome. Yeah,
it's
but
the
that's
exact same
so
point.
impossible.
Yeah, it's pretty impossible, but it's not logically impossible. It's just super improbable.
Yeah, it's like trying to argue that. Yeah.
It's the car making itself.
Yeah. I was going to say the car making itself might be more probable.
Actually, I think it would because the DNA is 3 billion base pairs long or whatever, and so the probability of 10 different or 100 different species getting the same ERV in the exact same location of those 3 billion long base pair is pretty.
It is basically almost zero.
Yeah.
Is it TJump? I listened to you talking about it the other day, and the only analogy I could get was like a tattoo on a DNA cell or a part of a chromosome that stays through the whole genetic life of that species. Is that right?
What? Say that again.
So, like the only idea I can come up with trying to understand it is it's like it affects the
ERVs. You're talking about how to understand ERVs?
Yeah, the RVs. Yeah, the retrograde viruses. It's like the analogy I had was something like a part of a cell, a part of a chromosome got kind of tattooed, and it through the whole lifespan of that creature or that species, it's in the same place in every offspring of that original species.
Yeah. So an endogenous retrovirus will inject its DNA into like a sperm cell or an egg cell, and then every single one of the kids will all have that same ERV. So your DNA will start to reproduce, and the same injected DNA will be in every single one of the different cells now. And so
it would be in the specific place in that species that would only have
all of the offspring. So all of the generations of that species and any future species that come from the parents who got the ERV will have the exact same DNA be replicated in the exact same spot in their DNA chain, no matter how many species down the line you go. As long as they still have that segment of DNA, it will be reproduced in the same order because DNA is just duplicate copies of the same thing. And so you will find the exact same ERV in the exact same location in all of the offspring and relatives of the parent. Yes.
You can't really get past the evolution with that, really, can you?
Yeah, and the bigger thing is one ERV isn't too bad, but there are thousands of them. There are thousands of these little tiny blocks that are shared between every single species all over the planet. You can find like 10 specifically for just one group of mammals and 100 for chimpanzees or whatever. And so each different species has dozens and dozens and dozens of these for each of their different lineages. And so explaining all of them would be essentially impossible.
Does it show stuff on gated off communities, like kind of like islands that have never been really populated by other species?
Yeah, like the species
Galapagos?
in Australia.
Galapagos, yeah.
Yeah.
Marsupials and shit, yeah. Australia.
Poisonous platypuses. Why do mammals have poison?
Yeah, or lay eggs. It's a
egg-laying venomous mammal.
I got a question for you, Tom.
Sure.
One of the from what I've seen, one of the biggest stumbling blocks when arguing like with creationists and even like anti-vaxxers and stuff is the idea that science and the scientific community has become really politicized and like very, very biased. And it's really hard to like prove otherwise. It's kind of just an assertion, but it's hard to show that it's not. Do you have any ideas how we could like kind of overcome that?
Yeah, so science and the way scientific progress works is that scientists all hate each other and they're wanting to prove everyone else wrong so that they're right. So they publish a piece of paper, a document of paper or whatever. Somebody else publishes a paper and they do everything they can to prove the other person wrong because they want them to be right and the other person to be wrong. And the other person's doing everything they can to prove your paper wrong. And so the political biases make no difference here to scientific papers. The ones that win are the ones that none of the other experts can prove wrong. So no one cares about bias here. It's like you want to publish a paper, and if no one else can prove it wrong, you win. No one cares what their biases are. There are no biases here. You can't bias out scientific progress. Like everyone hated the idea that space-time could bend, but he won. He got all the credit. Everyone else was trying to prove him wrong and couldn't. So if your entire methodology is everyone's attacking one another and the only one that can't be disproven wins, biases make no difference because the whole process is to say, my bias is that I'm right and that you're wrong, and your bias is that you're right and I'm right and I'm wrong. And the scientific methodology being combative and everybody proving everybody wrong is the way to eliminate bias from a methodology.
Totally. I just wonder if there's like a way to kind of show that, because like everybody knows who Neil deGrasse Tyson is because he's vocal and he's online and stuff. I wonder if what it's going to take is like the real like kind of eggheads, you know, like that don't really want to be in the public eye. Is there a way to like kind of convince them to do that?
You'd have to pay them enough money and they do it.
Right.
You're the guy that won the Fields Medal.
Because it seems like
In
in
Russia.
today's age, where like everything important or interesting is either like streamed or on tape or whatever. That if it's not like available to like watch on YouTube, people just have a hard time believing it.
I mean, if the goal is to convince people, I think the best way to do that is usually just making progress. The society that makes the most progress is going to have the most people who are the least likely to be delusional. So even in societies that like America, where there's a large religious community who reject a lot of stuff, they still have a higher amount of people who accept most science than countries that have much worse science education. So as long as you just keep making progress scientifically, people will eventually accept it and it'll become second nature. Like people pretty much always accept the world is round now and they didn't used to before. So as long as we keep making progress scientifically, it's eventually just going to change slowly on its own.
Right. Most Christians do believe in evolution.
Where do you see religion in 100 years' time?
Diminished, but still probably more popular than atheism. I think it's going to take a few hundred years, or once atheists essentially adopt a view of morality that is more intuitive and accurate than the Christian model, and then that'll be a big hit to religion. So kind of like Darwinian evolution was a big hit to religion. If we discover a secular model of morality that we accept, that'll be a big hit to religion, and that will be probably the final thing to start making atheism a more accepted view.
I think the metaphysics. I think the metaphysics are going to become more sophisticated and be a kind of replacement to religion per se. So that you'll be able to understand a Christian metaphysics as opposed to say an atheistic or idealistic one.
Hey, Jules, you're hot miking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, baby.
Oh, thank you, little baby.
Bro, are you my little kitten?
Continue.
TJumps, what do you think that moral structure would look like?
I think my model of objective morality captures it the best. I think it's that the objective moral standard is a perfect world that is one where it's impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing. I think that's the objective moral standard, and where we will aim towards in moving our technology.
Are you a libertarian?
No.
I have a question, TJump. So, could there be something written in the laws of nature that kind of utopia it eventuates something negative, like sort of like letting someone eat their favorite sweet cake all day long eventually becomes evil and horrific, right? So, could that be something that could confute your idea?
What?
Okay, so in any kind of conception of a perfect situation in society or perfect food, if you have too much of it, it becomes the opposite of perfect. It becomes hell. Your favorite meal all day long, for example, it would become horrible. So could it be the case that written in the laws of nature, you could never have a kind of utopia that you're talking about because too much of a good thing is too much?
No. So my world is essentially our world plus an extra law of physics. It's impossible to force people to do things they don't consent to doing. That's the only difference. So like you can.
Okay, so you think that law exists out there?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay, and then second, just to follow up. So I know a little bit about your conception of morality. You do think that it's either a particle or a field?
Yeah, something like that. Like a higher order emergent property of some kind.
And so do you have you worked out a kind of mechanics? I know you're not a physicist, but like any kind of dynamics that could help to run an experiment to discover this field?
No, my predictions are more like that we will see the same patterns in morality in other species, like other aliens if we discovered them, or AIs once they get invented, that they'll discover the same patterns in morality that we feel are there, and so they'll eventually lead to the same conclusion of this best of all possible worlds I'm describing.
But we should be able to identify it somehow, so like with the scientific
eventually.
device.
I have no idea how to do that.
Hey, T-Jump.
Hey.
What do you think about the God is a superorganism around the planet idea?
Superorganism? I don't know what that means.
Didn't we talk about this yesterday during that big chat thing?
It's wearing cape, blue tights?
No. He's wearing the flesh of its believers, occupying their minds. Not butt worms, but butt worms.
Are you good?
Okay, never mind. No one understands what I'm saying.
Your philosophy's too deep for us. We can't take this anymore.
Okay, well,
Too smart.
Damn, I'm too damn smart for you.
Yeah, the Superman hypothesis, man.
So I'm more of a Dragon Ball Z thing.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, what's this room about? Is this room about something special? Like,
I agree. It's interesting because I agree with T-Jump in a way, but he's giving us a universal T-Jump. The only thing he's doing, and where we would disagree, is that he's putting a material to it. He's saying it is material. Whereas I agree with T-Jump. I'm just saying that, or I would just believe that it would not reduce physics in principle.
Somebody's breathing hard into their microphone.
My bad.
But I want you guys to notice that T-Jump is giving us a sort of Platonism with his moral view.
Well, Platonism says specifically there are Platonic objects, and I don't think there are Platonic objects, no.
Well, I would just say to that what Plato offers is this transcendent reality. Now, yours is not that per se because you don't believe in a transcendent reality. You just believe that that thing is material. So it's still within this Aristotelian materia.
So Plato and Aristotle are different things. But so Plato says there are Platonic objects. Platonic objects are a specific kind of abstract object, which I don't think exists. Like, I don't think there are Platonic objects. So nothing I said is a kind of Platonism. It's a kind of moral realism. That's me and Plato are both moral realists, but I'm not in any way Platonic.
Okay, so here's what I mean. I'm just drawing an analogy. The reason I don't think you are a Platonist is because the Platonic objects you're talking about, these universals, so to speak, these forms with a capital F, would be transcendent, which means they're not material, but they're informing the material reality.
So again, I said there are no Platonic objects. So there are no Platonic objects in my model.
No, I agree. I know you are not a Platonist. I'm just drawing an analogy because Plato is saying that there's something transcendent from this material reality that is informing it. What you're saying is that that thing that is goodness and perfection is in the world. in an Aristotelian way, because Aristotle brings us back to this corporeal world. What you're saying is that that force of perfection is in the world as a material or a field. And so what I'm saying is that you're kind of shoehorning in a kind of universal, but in this world as a material.
Yeah, so none of that made sense. Like, all of the evidence of universals is that they're laws of physics. Like, the things we have that are the best qualifiers of universals is quantum fields. Quantum fields, right. Yeah. So if I think there's a universal of morality, the best candidate is probably also kind of like a quantum field.
Yes, yeah. That's why you're not a Platonist, because you bring it back into this material reality.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it's kind of, I mean, I can see an analogy here to where you're giving us a perfection, but the only difference is that you're bringing it into a field or a part.
Right. So the similarity is that we're both moral realists. That's the similarity.
Mm-hmm.
Hey TJump, what do you say about people who argue for the existence of God, like as a mind, as a thinking agent, who exists outside of time? Because my impression was that a thinking mind, right, is necessarily contingent on causality, on a linear time. So I was just wondering how does that, if that makes any sense to you, like that argument? Because
so I would disagree that it's necessarily contingent, but I'd say there's no evidence that there's a mind outside of time. And so I'd say saying that a mind is outside of time is kind of like saying there's a pineapple outside of time, and they both have equal evidence. And so I'd say there's no evidence that a mind exists outside of time, but I wouldn't say it's logically incoherent or necessarily impossible.
I would say there's mind has to be in time because thoughts happen in time.
Well, again, I'd say
it's
that
not spatial.
I'd say again the same thing. There's no evidence they can exist outside of time, but it's not logically necessary for them to be inside of time.
So you think I'm just going a little too much into it? It should just stop at, can even an object exist outside of time?
Well, no, I'd say, do you have any evidence? Like, that's what you should reply. You shouldn't say it's impossible. Like, it's possible, sure, but there's no evidence of it. So because there's no evidence of a mind existing outside of time, that would be like, if I said there was a mind outside of time, that would have equal evidence to saying there's a pineapple outside of time. So their idea that a mind outside of time created the universe is equally as rational as saying a pineapple outside of time created the universe.
But don't forget, though, that a pineapple is a different category than a mind.
No.
So pineapple is, well, hold on, let me just finish this. TJump thinks because TJump thinks that minds are material.
Well, no. So that's not part of the argument. So the argument here is that there is equal evidence for a mind outside of time as there is for a pineapple outside of time. It doesn't matter if minds are physical or non-physical, spatial or non-spatial. Okay. The evidence that we have, regardless of your worldview, is that the evidence minds can exist outside of time is equal to the evidence that pineapples can exist outside of time.
Yeah, that's
right. Yeah, but I specifically went further with the argument and entertained it that far because they always try to respond with like, oh, well, you don't know what can exist outside of time. Maybe it's some ethereal matter of some kind.
Right. I would agree with them and say, yes, you're right, which is exactly why pineapples could exist outside of time, just like you think minds could.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I just entertained it further to the point where I was saying, well, even if there is some type of matter that can exist apart from causality, even the idea, the concept of thinking is necessarily contingent on
That's wrong.
Temporal space.
That is definitively wrong. You cannot say thinking is contingent on temporal space. That is wrong.
Okay.
There's no logical entailment that thinking requires time. There could be some other kind of a medium outside of time that can allow for thinking. So like time is a specific kind of a field in physics. And so if there's a different field in physics that can essentially accomplish the same thing but isn't time, then you can do thinking outside of time.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I don't know. I would just say that here's what I believe. I think that an object like a pineapple is both spatial and temporal. It's bound by space because it can be measured spatially. It's bound by time because it changes. A mind, I don't think is bound by time. I don't think is bound by space, but it is bound by time, because I can tell you to think of flowers. You will, and then time will be ticking as you are, and then there'll be a time that you stop thinking of flowers.
Whether you think it is or not. Well, hold up. So whether you think it is or not isn't evidence. So you'd have to provide some evidence to think that in any way minds are not bound by the same things pineapples are bound by. So what reason do you think minds are not bound by the same things pineapples are bound by?
I don't have any positive evidence, but I would just say and I wouldn't know how to prove this, but it seems like it would be impossible to give a spatial parameter in centimeters to a thought, or a thought in grams or something like that.
Well, we actually can. So if you Google the weight of a thought, there's actually an equation for that. But the fact that it's intuitive to you doesn't really seem to work. Because like if you said, what is the spatial limitation of a pineapple? Because pineapples have different shapes and sizes. At what point does it become a pineapple? Like you couldn't actually give a precise definition of when an object becomes just a plant to specifically a pineapple, because it's called the problem of identity. So there's no way to give an exact definition for either of those things.
No, that's different though. I would say that you could, whatever that object is, whether it's a tiny pineapple looking thing, you could still give it a measurement of it, depending on how accurate or sophisticated your measurement device is.
We can measure its weight and size and whatever, but at what point does it go from a seed to a pineapple? Like when is the exact moment that a seed becomes a pineapple?
Well, let's just say any corporeal object, embodied object, classical object, that thing you can deduce with a measuring device with spatial parameters. I don't see that you could do that with a thought in principle.
Again, we can that's literally a thing. We literally do that. Just Google the weight of a thought. But
could you describe how they did that?
Yes, Google
Are they
the weight
using
of a thought.
electrochemistry? I mean, because that's not a thought. You know what I mean?
Thoughts are made of energy. Energy can be translated into mass with E equals mc squared. So you can literally translate it to the mass of a thought.
Hold on. We have to be careful. Let's be careful here. The electrochemistry that's transmitted through neural firing, those are exhaustively described in terms of physics, and there's nothing in them that is the thought. It's just physics.
No, so all of the evidence in neurology, psychology, cognitive science is that those are the thoughts. So
it's that they correlate to the thoughts.
The consensus is those are the thoughts. So the consensus is that there is no extra non-material part of thoughts. Consciousness is a part of the material. It's literally the material thing there.
Thoughts are the label we put on brain states.
Well, I would say thoughts is what happens associated with brain states. It's not just a label. It's your primary datum of all of reality.
Right. Your conscious experience is literally a physical thing in your brain.
Well, I would just say, as far as they know, and no one's won the Nobel to establish what you just said, even if it's consensus, it's just not right now a theory. There is not even one theory of consciousness.
It's a physical brain state.
They're just correlated. That's as far as you can go with it.
You can never prove anything in science. Science is only based on correlation and evidence, and all of the evidence indicates it's just physical. There is zero evidence there's anything other than physical there. Nothing that indicates that. It's all physical. That's all of the evidence indicates that. So it's kind of like, yeah, like literally all of it. But so it's like evidence of the flat Earth. Like the position of idealism is essentially no different from the evidence of the flat Earth. That's how bad it is.
Here's all I would say to that, and then we can move on, because this will be the hard problem debate forever. In the electrochemistry and action potentials and thresholds reached that are neural networks, there is no such thing in those physics as redness. There's only something associated with redness and correlated to it, but there is no redness in any of those physics.
Right. And so what I'm saying is literally all of the evidence says you're wrong, and it's literally there.
Well, no. I mean, there's not one shred of evidence that shows us redness from any of these firings.
All of the evidence is that it's all physical stuff in your brain. All of the evidence indicates that. There's nothing that doesn't indicate that. Nothing.
No, that's just not.
No, that's literally the case. Like, there's no evidence of any alternative here. That's it. That's the only option you have.
First of all, the only evidence is that there's a strong correlation, but there are some times when those correlations break down and go the other direction.
No, there is no case where it goes the other direction. There is no other direction.
That's not true at all, dude. That is just not true. I can pull up the studies and post them.
Every single novel prediction ever made indicates The mind is physical brain stuff. There is nothing, no papers,
I'll give you one.
no predictions, no evidence of anything else. Go ahead. What is the other evidence?
You want your black swan? I'll give you the black swan.
Go ahead.
So the prediction was that as you are having intense self-reported experience, you will see neural activity that's associated with that. So the more intense the experience, the more excitation of the neurons. Well,
that's not actually a prediction made by anybody that's literally the opposite of any prediction made by anybody who knows anything about neurology. So like epilepsy, you have lots of neural activity, zero conscious experience. So that's literally not a thing anybody who is competent in neurology would make.
Well, no. So here's what and I'll have to pull up the study. But the idea was
I've literally seen that study. I know exactly what you're saying. They're idiots. No one in neurology makes a correlation. No, stop. Listen. No one in neurology makes a correlation between the amount of brain activity and the vividness of the conscious activity. Those are literally two different things. Your brain, when it's going through an epileptic seizure, it has more brain activity than any other state. It's just a bunch of random firings. That does not equate to higher levels of conscious experience. Consciousness is a specific process in the brain, and you need a specific set of patterns in the brain to produce vividness of consciousness, not just more firings. No one who is a competent neurologist says that if you have conscious experience, the more vivid the conscious experience will be associated with more random brain activity. No one says that.
See, you've just shoehorned random. I wasn't saying random, and nor would they say random. It is the case, for example, if you give someone a stimulus, a visual stimulus, that they do expect certain excitations that are proportionate to that stimulus in the occipital lobe in the primary visual cortex.
Yes.
So I'm with you on that. I'm just saying that correlation is not always there.
Yes, it is.
And you're probably familiar with the psilocybin research that I was going to cite.
Yeah, the studies where they found less activity in the areas of the brain still correlated to high levels of stimulus in the conscious experience or whatever. But that's, again, not something we wouldn't expect. Most of what your brain does isn't consciousness.
Well, I would just say that if that's the case, then it would be impossible to falsify the neural correlate. Because if let me just finish this real quick point, 10 seconds. If it's the case that you can provide a stimulus and watch neural activity excite, and then if you provide a stimulus and it cools down, then you've got it both ways. You can say, hey, the cool down means intense experience, and also the excitation means it. So that it would be impossible to falsify that.
No, you just have to find a way to differentiate which excitations correlate to consciousness and which excitations have subconscious or unconscious effects. Like, it doesn't mean it's impossible to falsify. It just means that excitations aren't the thing that corresponds to consciousness. It's just a thing. Like if I said, all roses are flowers, but not all flowers are roses. All consciousness is excitation, but not all excitation is consciousness. There's nothing about this that's even surprising.
Do you agree with Kant when he said we have to be extremely sensitive and careful to making category errors? Are you very sensitive to category errors, like saying that a voltage or networks of voltages are thoughts per se?
I'm not sure what you mean there. So that's what the evidence indicates.
Well, no. Again, the evidence gives you the correlation.
No. You keep saying that, but that just shows you don't understand science. In science, there is only correlation. You can never prove causation. So all of the correlation means that hypothesis is the one that has the evidence. It's the one that's correct or has the most likeliness to be correct. You only get correlation. So all the correlations in that field are the only ones that have the evidence.
If that's the case, then why hasn't the people who are studying consciousness and giving us those tight correlations winning Nobel Prizes for solving the hard problem?
Because the hard problem isn't something that needs to be solved for a Nobel Prize. Like the Nobel Prizes are not given for that kind of stuff. Like what you're saying is meaningless. Like the neurologists are winning Nobel Prizes all the time. That's a thing. Somebody breaking up? God for 20, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I can't hear anybody else.
Oh, you can't hear anyone else?
Test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay. Hey,
said
I
he-
pinged you a DM there, TJump. You have to ping on yourself, I guess.
What? Why are you sending a DM?
The bot, I sent you the thing there.
Why did you...
Here's what I would say to that, TJump. If you could if a neuroscientist could give us an equation for the experience of redness, he would win the Nobel Prize. But because of psychology and the mind and how variable it is and how
Well, again, that doesn't matter.
transient it is.
Like it literally doesn't matter. Like what you're saying is incoherent. If we have correlations that indicate this, all of the evidence indicates this. Do we need to prove this? No. Like all of the evidence indicates dark energy is there. No one's won a Nobel Prize for winning dark energy yet. Does the evidence
Yep.
indicate it?
But
yes.
you know they're looking for it, right?
Yes.
You know that right now they have a spectrometer looking, and that's what I'm
Yes.
giving you. I'm saying that they need a spectrometer for consciousness because they're going to want to win that
We
Nobel.
don't need that yet. Yes, we're looking for one. We are trying to solve it. That's a real thing.
Okay,
We
that's the
don't
whole
need.
point.
So my argument is all of the evidence indicates this is the case. There is no evidence that indicates it's not the case. The fact that we don't have a spectrometer for consciousness yet doesn't change the fact that all evidence indicates it's physical. So you keep objecting. Oh well, you haven't proven it yet. We haven't proven dark energy yet either. All of the evidence is dark energy is real. So any rational mind is gonna be like, yeah, dark energy is real because here's all the evidence indicates it. So any rational mind and consciousness is going to be like, yeah, all the evidence indicates consciousness is a physical process and there's no other evidence of anything else. So have we proven it? No, but we don't need to. We have all of the evidence.
I would say that dark energy, I mean, the models for dark energy, I think, are very tight and very good, obviously. But as far as it being a particle or a new field form of gravity remains to be seen. And there could be somebody that comes along and upsets the apple cart.
Sure. Always. But that's what we would need evidence for that. Like all the evidence is it's real. And there's several, what's her name? Sabine Hofstetter. Like she's saying that dark energy is fake or something. Yeah. So,
Well, she
so
verdict's out.
the point is that you can go against all of the evidence, but it's not the rational thing to do. So the rational thing to do in the case of the mind is say, yep, all the evidence indicates it's physical. That's the rational conclusion, is that it's physical.
But it just appears, I mean, it just seems clear that that's a category error because we know what physical is. We know what the materials are, like in totality,
Wait,
exhaustively
so
described with physics. And none of that is a feeling or anything like that, which is not something that
so go back. So you seem to be making the assumption that we know everything about all of the physical stuff and none of that entails some other property we've discovered through consciousness. That seems to be your argument.
I mean, physics is what it is. It's described as mass, amplitude, wave, charge.
No. So again, we could just discover new things about physics that entail those things. You seem to have placed a stopper and said we've discovered everything about physics there is to know, which is clearly false. So
well, no.
Well, that seems to be like the implication of your argument.
Mind is a particle.
So it seems like the implication of your argument is that there's literally nothing else we could discover about physics that would solve this problem. And that seems obviously wrong.
Well, no, I mean, you're giving us the promissory note, and I'm saying it could go the other direction. Perhaps physics has its limit, and then we have to look to other things to... Let's just say this, TJump. What if I want to address what you just said there. So, yes, I have induction of science always working and physical stuff always working and always giving us the answer. So it's reasonable. So it's reasonable. No. Stop. For everything, for literally everything that we've ever discovered, science works, physical stuff works. It's the one that works. So if we have an unknown problem, saying this same process is going to be the one that solves the problem is again the rational solution because no other method ever invented has ever done a damn thing. So yes, going with this method is the rational thing to do. Here's how I would respond. Yes, I agree with that, and that's why you get technology, because you can take these objects and you can deduce all of these physics and math from, and that allows you to make predictions about those objects. But then there seems to be a cut in reality in things that do not reduce to those physics.
Wait, where is this cut?
Well, okay, I already described consciousness.
Well, so here's
something outside of it.
Well, one second. That's a good point. That's a good point I wanted to address. So it seems like you're making an argument from ignorance. Here's the stuff we understand, which is the science stuff.
As are you. Remember, you said give us time.
That's not an argument from ignorance. So again, it seems like you're making the argument that so we know about the physical stuff, and then here's something we don't know about consciousness. And there's these properties in this consciousness thing that we don't know about in the physical stuff. Therefore, we need to make up an entirely new ontology that it can't be any of the unknown physical stuff.
I myself am open-minded. Once we get the T-jump particle for morality or consciousness, I'm in. I'm a physicalist that day. But what I'm saying is, what if there are things that are immaterial? In
that's fine. That'll be totally possible.
But if that's the case, T-jump, you're not going to find it with physics.
Right. That's totally fine.
It'll point in the direction.
Yes, I agree.
It'll get you far enough.
Whoa, I agree. We would not be able to find it with physics, but able to conclude that it is in fact immaterial and not just an unknown physical thing, you would need some new methodology to indicate this new ontology. You wouldn't just be able to say, well, we haven't found it in the physics yet, therefore it's a new ontology.
Precisely.
You need some other methodology to actually get access to this stuff to demonstrate it's real. That's essentially equivalent to science. And one sec. So
we'll end on that agreement. I don't.
Yeah. That's, to me, I don't see that other methodology. All I see people who are like idealists saying is that, well, we haven't discovered it in the physics yet, and it's never going to be discovered in the physics, therefore there's a new ontology. And I'm like, well, no, that's just an argument from ignorance. You need to provide that other methodology to indicate this stuff, not just say it hasn't been found by the physics yet.
Well, they would point toward quantum mechanics, right, and Leggett inequalities, and the fact that since 2003 with Leggett's paper, it seems as though pretty much a consensus that down there, quote unquote, at the quantum scale, materiality sort of ceases to be, and now we're in a realm of.
No, it's still physics. So it's still physics stuff.
Well, hold on. It's only physics once measured. Prior to that, it's not there. Remember, hold on. Let me just make this point. This is very, very important. Whatever that thing is prior to measurement, there can be said to be no momentum, no mass, nothing until it's measured.
Right,
and
but it's still
they're not saying that it has that. We just don't have an instrument to find it. They're saying it's literally massless. It's literally
no, I don't think you're understanding it. So in physics, those are still physical things. Those are still physical material fields. The fields themselves are material things. The quantum fields are literally things that exist in a vector space. They are physical things. They're not saying physical things are gone. They're just saying matter, as in a thing that is produced as a fluctuation in the space-time field, doesn't exist because it's an emergent property of other physical space-time field or other physical fields. So the physical fields are still physics. It's still material fields, if you call a field material. So it's not in any way some new special thing. And there's no evidence that it in any way relates to consciousness. But the fact that these things in physics aren't space-time, because space-time and matter are all results of emergent of other more fundamental fields, doesn't mean they're not physical. They're still physical, natural stuff.
Wait, don't say space-time, because now you're in the classical world. There is no time.
No, space-time and matter are emergent fields from other more fundamental fields.
But T-jump, in quantum mechanics, there is no time derivative. It goes both ways. In classical mechanics, now we're in the time derivative.
So time is literally a field that literally exists. It doesn't matter if it goes both ways or not. It's still a field.
Well,
and it's an emergent field from other fields.
I don't. No, I don't. Time is not. Time is described in. If you want to get a confusing answer from physicists on what time.
Space-time is the fourth dimension of space-time. Space-time is all a single field.
Some disagree. I mean, this is hotly debated right now. Is time? Some believe, like Lee Smolin, that Lee Smolin believes that time is fundamental and space is emergent.
Yes, and then he gives I understand that, but the consensus in physics is that space and time are both emergent.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But let me just take us back down to the quantum scale real quick. So what I do think that quantum mechanics does is it does suggest that there is a real world of objects that is superior, primary, because as George Ellis and Barbara Drossel have shown, that quantum system cannot come into classical physics unless but for a classical object existing either primarily or with it simultaneously. And all that is to say is that quantum wave system that you're talking about, that field, never does it can't collapse itself. it's not allowed for in physics for that wave to collapse itself. This is why we have many worlds, for example, and they say the wave never collapses because they know the physics doesn't allow that wave to collapse.
Well, the wave can collapse from lots of different interactions with other waves.
But the wave does, yes, the wave collapses only when it comes into contact with a classical object. It never collapses outside of that.
Yes, it can. To me, the wave can collapse from interactions with other waves. So like it doesn't need to collapse with an interaction. Like virtual particles would be a great example of this. They don't interact with anything in the natural world. They just pop into existence. That's perfectly fine. They're interacting with a different field. So the particles don't need to hit a classical object to collapse. They can collapse in lots of different ways.
If it's a particle that has a position in it, the
virtual
only way
particle,
to know that
virtual particles, they don't have a mass or a position until they collapse.
Okay, well then they're not collapsed then.
Right, and then they collapse, and we've shown they come into existence empirically with the Casimir effect. So they don't do that.
If we can show their position, that means per force that they
oh my God, you're not understanding. So virtual particles don't interact with anything. They pop into existence at random with no interaction at all with anything in the real world on their own. Casimir effect. Google Casimir effect.
Well, if they don't have a position, then they're not collapsed.
No, they collapse and then they have a position, not before.
I see. I'll have to look at it. Hopefully this isn't like string theory.
Well, Casimir effect is like literally something we've demonstrated in a lab. It's just virtual particles. So string theory would just be one of the interpretations to try and explain it. So Casimir effect is a literal empirical experiment.
That's it, objects.
Is there a mod here who can give mod powers to people? Like Jack, Jack Burton, do you have mod powers? My room.
I have mod power, or I've got room operator powers in this room. I can't give out mod powers though.
Can you give out room operator stuff?
Not that I know of. I think that's all. It's got to be actual server mod and admin stuff, or admin level that does that.
Okay, the Casimir effect, where between metal plates and empty space are modified by the presence of virtual particles. So yeah, that would be empirical data right there.
Yep.
Hey, so like, who thinks like me, Russia's not gonna get all its objectives done?
Is that a joke? Like Russia isn't going to get any of its objectives done. It's going to take Ukraine.
It's already gotten a few objectives done. I mean, it took like the largest EU, well, not EU, but largest European nuclear station.
I don't really think that was one of their objectives. Like their objectives are more like security and economics. Like literally, if their objective was put a foot in Ukraine, yeah, they done that, but since the goal was more economic and national security reasons, those are the things they're not going to accomplish, like any of their actual goals.
I don't think they'll win. I think they'll, use the peace talks. But I'm kind of surprised, man. I didn't realize they would have so much trouble.
Yes,
I mean, Ukraine is like 1/3 their population, but like...
Yes, I'm also surprised by the military ability of Ukraine to actually wage a successful
I'm not
protection. Like it's kind of like how America attacked Iraq and America won in like 3 days. It was over. And then that's kind of what you would expect to happen to Ukraine, but nope, Ukraine is actually putting up a sizable fight. Super surprising.
I would like Russia to lose just because I'm a patriot, but when you get like thousands upon thousands of like anti-tank missiles from other sides, and like every Western country trying to use like special forces and drone strikes to stop your military secretly, it's fair to say it's going to be a tough time.
Well, even with that, like I'm surprised at how how much damage Ukraine has done to the Russian army, like knocking down all those planes, destroying all those tanks. Like, that's really impressive.
I'm happy. I mean, I know we helped them and a lot of other Western nations helped them, but it's good for us. But, you know, I don't think it's particularly fair, and I think China's like, this ain't fair. And Russia's like,
those
now
are
we know who our real allies are.
those are thoughts China has literally never had. China has never even heard of the word fair.
I get what you're saying. Anybody want to jump in? You know, Russia bad? Huh?
Russia. I just don't want to see nukes involved. That's it.
Yeah,
You don't want to see
Russia is making big mistakes.
I don't think we should dive for Ukraine. I'm not gonna lie.
No, that's fair. That's fair. We don't even have to. You send like a couple thousand anti-tank missiles, and you do like hundreds of millions of dollars of damage, even if Ukraine loses.
Yeah,
You know,
so if we go to war with Mexico, and Russia sends Mexico 1,000 tanks, are we just supposed to like let that happen?
Well, they wouldn't send 1,000 tanks because it would be prohibitively expensive, but they might send like small arms and anti-tank missiles.
So if those same weapons are going to be used to kill us, are we just supposed to sit on our asses and let that happen?
Why would we invade Mexico again?
It's just hypothetical.
hypothetical,
So to me, I understand his point, and his point is that suppose Russia invaded one of the NATO countries that's a neighbor to Ukraine, then we would be obligated to actually go in and defend them because we're a part of NATO and we're obligated to fight. And if we did, that would essentially start World War III for sure. America versus Russia, that would be World War III. And then the probability of using nukes significantly increases, which could potentially kill lots and lots of people. And his statement is that
on the positive side, it might
the number one rule of nukes is to never use them.
Yes,
yeah, okay. Tell the United States that, but go ahead.
That the thing is that because Russia is expansionist, and since they are expanding into Ukraine, and if they did attack a NATO country, if we went to war, the country who's most likely to lose is the one who's most likely to start a nuclear war. So
that's a good point.
If Russia was going to lose and they were going to lose their national sovereignty and their ability to defend themselves, then the likelihood they might use a nuke and that other countries would retaliate with nukes is actually pretty high.
Especially considering the statements that Putin has made about, like, I don't remember what it was, but he said basically he would see the entire world be destroyed if it meant Russia was to be destroyed.
Yep. I don't doubt that one bit.
I'm sure the United States didn't say that, but they feel the exact same way.
I don't know about that.
I know
America's
that.
government's for its fault is like rational. Putin's not. I don't think
this is what I'm saying. Putin is
fair,
not an idiot. He's for the past 8 years has been planning an invasion of Ukraine, but the American media is painting him as some irrational idiot who's making a lot of mistakes right now. And that might be part of his plan, because making Putin look like an idiot who's about to start World War III might be the biggest bluff that the U.S. media and the U.S. government is calling right now. If they can't back that up, and eventually in 2 months it looks like no nuclear holocaust is actually going to happen, then the U.S. government and the U.S. media is going to look like a bunch of fucking idiots.
Well, that's not a problem because they do that all the time on their own. But
does anyone want to fact check a thing? Because does anyone want to see if Russian parliament passed a bill to take all of the protesters that they've been detaining and conscripting them?
That makes literally no sense.
Stupid, dude.
That would be dumb.
That's why I'm
It's
asking if anyone wants to like fact check that.
They'd be like, you know what? Let's take all of the war prisoners and let's make them soldiers on our side and see what happens.
Yeah, let's give them like classified
Dude, they won't be facts at all. Like, what are you talking about?
Intelligence and help them understand how our military works.
Let's give guns to the people who hate what we're doing. Genius.
Ooh, I did hear about this.
They probably would just kill them.
No, Ukraine
It's more realistic.
passed the law like where like if you're a Ukrainian citizen, you can get a free firearm. Like that's kind of hilarious.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Like, what's it? Israel and Switzerland do that too, where they have mandatory military service and you get a gun, and you get to take it home. So
No, it's not mandatory military service.
Well,
If
duh,
you're
because
a
they don't
Joe
have time for that
nobody,
now.
You can get a gun right now.
Well, again, that makes
For free.
sense. Exactly like for what I said, because if you're in, wait, hold up. hold up. So in countries that are at risk of being invaded, like those countries have mandatory military service and give out weapons exactly for that reason. So now that a war has started, the fact that they give out weapons makes a lot of sense.
No, I don't disagree with that statement. I'm just saying that's exactly how, like, civilian buildings get bombarded.
I don't see the connection there.
You don't see how, like, giving a civilian a gun and they take pot shots at the Russian military gets a residential building shot by a tank?
He's got a good point, can't I?
No, because I think that they do that anyway. Like they shoot the residential buildings before anyone's.
I don't think that's fair to say, man. I think from like the level, they're like, oh my God, Russia attacked an apartment building and like 6 people were wounded.
There's literally a video of Russia running over a little lady in a car.
Yeah, no, seriously though, I think Russia, real talk, like, yeah, I want them to get their ass kicked, but I feel it's like pretty Western media-y to be like, oh my God, they're committed war crimes, and I think they're trying, man. But like, you have a bunch of Ukrainians.
Well. So just to be clear, war crimes happen in war all the time. Everybody does war crimes.
Exactly.
Like saying war crimes are happening is like, yeah, war is the thing that definitely happens. So the news media saying that is just irrelevant. Like the news media are a bunch of idiots who want clicks and do nothing of any importance. So yes, war crimes are a thing. They've always been a thing. America does more than literally everyone else. But yes, war crimes are a thing.
I meant to point out.
Excuse me, TJumps.
Unfortunately, our media is like very incredibly biased. Unfortunate, but it helps you like.
Excuse me, TJumps.
What bias?
Yeah. Please respond in guest text.
I'm not looking at the chat. I'm playing a video game. What do you want?
Okay.
Okay.
Admin needs you to.
What are you playing?
Did
The
you want
admin needs you to respond.
Did you want him to become a mod?
Yeah, so like God 420 and Beowulf, B30 Wolf are.
Also, don't forget me. I have to be.
I just want to know what you're playing right now. Like,
And
what are you
objects are real too.
No, I don't know. I don't know objects are real. I don't know him that
Okay,
well.
so just God and then Beowulf.
Yep.
And Nathan R23.
I don't know who that is either.
Just B30 and me.
Yeah.
Got it.
Don't let them trick you.
Monkeys.
Give me a minute.
And Nathan R23.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Take your time. It doesn't need to be in a hurry. So.
Are you getting? Are you? What's your name? Who's the cool guy talking with the points? I want to know what game you're playing. Come on, tell me.
Oh, I'm playing Immortal Phoenix.
Immortal Phoenix. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, I've submit to GameFly, and so I just put like a whole bunch of games on the list and try them whenever I want.
I get you. I don't like spending money to get whatever game I want. Next game I'm gonna get is Elden Rings or whatever, the one that George R. Martin has specifically or allegedly, put his creative input on.
Open World Dark Souls.
What?
Open World Dark Souls. That's the official name.
Oh, exciting. But anywho, I think like, it's not great to see how biased our media is, but it is great to see like Russia get a really large black eye. But I might be afraid that they're kind of like, what's it called? They're putting in like their B or C team, and they just want to look dumb for like long-term purposes. That's what I'm afraid of.
How does I don't understand what possible long-term.
All right. Well, here's where this is coming from. So Russia has 1 million active troops allegedly, 2 million reserves, right?
Yep.
So their invading force is only 150,000. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, that makes perfect sense. Like,
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
Think about the. Hold up.
It's about other things as well, not just manpower.
So every single war ever started, that recent war, not like in the past, recent war, the invading force is usually a very small percentage of your actual active military. Like America invading Iraq, the active military and the invading force were very different numbers. Like it's always the case that you want to use the least forces required in order to potentially achieve the goal.
Recently, yes.
And so, Russia was not expecting this. They were not expecting this.
Well, okay, but we're a week in now, so why are their numbers still the same?
Because it would cost them a lot more money and resources to do a full-scale invasion, and doing that would be very, very bad.
you talking about? They haven't even committed all the troops. They're like blockaded.
No,
Not
we're
fucking
aware of
blockaded.
that.
They're
That's the
on the
point we're
they're on
making.
the road. Yeah.
They have
So
3 million possible troops, not to mention conscripts, and they're sending in like 5% of that number.
yes, that's
Probably
normal.
Why would they send in more?
That's
They're
normal.
already
What?
having logistical. Why would they send in more when they're already having logistical issues with the
Well,
already
maybe they
deployed
hire a
troops?
few people to solve those logistical issues. I mean, you're the third largest
hire
oil
people?
producer in the world,
Did you
and your
say
tanks
hire
are running out
people?
of
So-
fuel. Maybe
so-
you hire a few more logistical people.
Logistical
Yeah,
issues
like
is
the
like
entire government.
hold up. So logistical issues is like transporting food and energy, gasoline, ammunition.
Yep.
You don't hire people to transport your.
Let me rephrase. Not hire, obviously. Send more military men. That's what I meant to say.
Well, that's the problem. If they send more military men, they need to send more food, more gasoline, more trucks, which cost exponentially more money the more you spend. That's like
They
playing.
have,
so it's like if
they
you're
have-
playing.
they have special battalions as well for it.
Stop. So it's like if you're playing poker and you
Fucking
lose a
genius,
hand, and the correct strategy is not to double down. And that's essentially what you're suggesting, is that when you lose on a certain amount of resources, the correct way to do it is to dump more resources at it. And that's usually not the best way. So doubling down.
Okay. I like your logic. That's some good. That's a good little touche there. I forget the word I'm looking for. Not rebuke. Like
Retort.
retort. That's
Quotation.
oh my
Yeah.
god,
Oh,
you're in my
retort.
mind right now. Good job. Retort. That is a great retort. I don't know, man. Putin is special forces, but
Well, so what I think happened was that Putin was expecting the Ukrainian invasion to go like the Americans did to the Iraqi invasion. Instant win. They have nothing. You're technologically superior in every way. But that didn't happen. So now he's very surprised, and he's probably trying to figure out what the best course of action is. He's thinking, well, probably
go ahead.
he's thinking probably they have a limited amount of resources, and so they can only put up a defensive front for a minimum amount of time, and then they're going to crack. So that's probably the strategy he's going for, is that he continues with the current plan, and eventually they're going to run out of support and just crack. And they haven't yet, and that's probably very surprising and concerning for him. And so he's probably going to be considering.
He definitely should have gone with Blitzkrieg, before the Western.
Y'all, I really think you guys think like I don't know if we know the whole situation. Like, Russia is somehow getting bogged down. Like maybe like that's the actual plan here. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys aren't military analysts. Like, you're not fucking Pentagon. You guys aren't the Pentagon. Like, chill.
Yeah.
You don't know the
Yeah,
full
no,
situation.
so no, real talk. Hey,
Don't
listen.
speculate.
So absolutely none of that is relevant. So there's no one second. So there's no tactical advantage to losing thousands of tanks and pretending you're shit at invasion. Like there's literally no benefit to that. Military invasions are not super CIA 4D chess things. Like there is no benefit here.
Here's my logic. And number one, whoever said we shouldn't speculate, when you speculate, you learn other people's opinions, new ideas. And number two, obviously, we know like 5% of the total information. Okay, we don't know that much. We are not the Pentagon. We don't know shit.
The Pentagon doesn't know shit either, just to be clear. The Pentagon also
yes, they
does not
do.
know shit. No, they don't.
Yes,
They
No,
literally
don't.
told China Russia was going to invade Ukraine, and China gave their information to Russia. The
Yes.
Pentagon knew this was going to happen for a
Everyone
month.
already knew that was going to happen. Like
So
that
I'll
was super
say,
obvious.
I'll say, like, in real talk, like, U.S. military probably has, like, at least 80% information, and that's a conservative estimate.
Not even
You have
no.
UAV.
No.
You have Google on your side.
War. First thing about war is that nobody has enough information. Like having information is the most valuable thing because you barely have any of it. So no one in war has 80% of the information. That would be a dream if you had that much information. But you can be assured that losing a bunch of battles is in no way beneficial. Like the reason Putin didn't do a blitzkrieg, because if they had done a blitzkrieg, everybody would have been pissed. Like everybody in the surrounding nations would have been even more on alert, and it would have been more likely to garner a worldwide response. So the more military he sends, the more likely he is to get retaliated against. So he wants to use the smallest military possible in order to act as least threatening as possible to get his goal accomplished. And it's not working, and that's the concerning fact for him.
After all, it's a peace mission, right?
That's
Peace mission.
okay point. But in reality, not in reality. I just think looking weak, yes, I'll admit, like in many ways does not go well for you. But in other ways, if you use your least trustworthy soldiers, right, you get rid of like your most incompetent, you gauge how much your worst
just so
military
stupid.
presence can
Come
do. If you're, well, listen, okay, first of all, like, if as an economics major, like, my number one goal right now would be like, if I'm a
Well, let's say they do that. So let's take your example. Let's say that they want to just expel their least useful soldiers or something. Like, what is the economic impact of doing that? First thing, every one of their family and friends are going to be pissed at you. You're going to lose public support. The longer anybody's in war, the more public support they lose for them, and the less likely they are going to be able to maintain it. They're going to lose economic usefulness. They're going to increase sanctions, which are going to add costs to their economy. They're going to have logistical issues, technological losses. Do you really think just simply eliminating some bad soldiers is a positive gain that is worth all of the different economic costs that they're getting right now? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, let me respond to that. That is some excellent points, exactly the points I've thought of, except for one or two I missed. But here's my response. So number one, it's not just bad soldiers, it's old equipment. So tanks that are old, blah, blah, blah. And then so here's the long-term benefit. You're going into World War III, okay? Ukraine doesn't fucking matter. You have big entrenched interests that you want to see fall. Germany, UK, America, blah, blah, blah. So you want those people to fall, right? And you want to look weak, and you want China, India, the people who have been practicing their war games together, you want to see, the playing field, so to speak. You want to see who's on your side, who's not. So yes, you expend a very large economic loss, a very large, face loss, but Russia has always been the bad guy. Like, Russia, this is nothing new. They've always had sanctions. They've always been hated. They've always been like, people don't like them. So generally, you take this hit on the chin, a very large punch to the chin, and then long term, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, you make the big move. You go World War III, use all the technology you've been keeping back. China, we don't know how they're going to act. We don't know what type of weapons they've developed.
It's a bluff.
Wait, why? What is
I'm not saying it's a bluff. Plus, let me.
Wait. I'm not understanding what you're saying. One sec. I don't.
One more important point.
Wait. I'm not following your argument here. So you're saying that instead of just launching into World War III with all of your good tech, first you're going to waste billions of dollars attacking Ukraine, which does nothing, and sacrifice a lot of troops and tanks for no reason, make yourself weaker, have everyone unite against you, lose billions of dollars economically, and then decide 20 years from then to start World War III when you are significantly weaker? Why?
Again, you wouldn't be significantly weaker if you wasted your, what would be considered, not, what's the word?
Well, weaker here, what I mean by is economically weaker.
Not useful thing. What's the word? Old, no longer.
Right. But that doesn't. So even if you give up your old useful stuff, you're pitting the world against you. They're uniting,
which it already is. It already is.
Not as much, not nearly as much. And you're going to have a lot of sanctions. So costs in Russia are going to skyrocket. Their economic production is going to go down. They're not going to have as many opportunities or resources. So they're going to be throttled economically. So they're not going to be able to produce as much military stuff.
Okay, let's do the flip of your scenario, right? Russia wins in 2 days, right? Sure. It just steamrolls everybody. It fucking kicks ass and takes names, right? Oh. What does the United States, UK, and Germany do after that?
Yes, that would be
what
bad.
Do you think they do?
That would be bad. You wouldn't want to do that.
No. I'm just saying, work with me here. What happens after that?
Massive sanctions. There'd be military support for all of the surrounding nations. They would all join and increase the military production of NATO in order to increase the military power of all the local countries nearby.
Yeah, then China takes Taiwan. And then what does the world do?
Well, China taking Taiwan wouldn't affect anything, because the American military isn't going to go there. They're just going to give a lot of military equipment to all the local surrounding countries. And so their military is going to be unified, and they're going to group together, because over the past 50 or so years, all of the countries in the Europe have not been working well together. That was Trump's criticism. No one's paying their due in NATO. And now, because of the threat of Russia, people are going to take NATO a lot more seriously and group together and start reinforcing their militaries a lot more than they would. So they've been given essentially a warning.
No, they would have
If China
if
go
Russia
into
was
Taiwan,
winning,
the
but it's
British
not
will
winning.
attack China.
Well, so they're doing that right now. They're literally doing that and benefiting NATO right now,
I
even
don't
though
know. They would have done that regardless with any invasion, but we're talking about like people who see it.
right. That's the point. Any
If Russia was
invasion.
taken out,
Hold up. So
we would
any
be putting-
invasion Russia is
I'm-
going to do is going to stimulate everyone else to start building up their military. So any preemptive action gives people warning to build up their militaries and gives them more time to prevent anything power you have to actually win World War III. So any preemptive action by Russia, if they planned on starting World War III, is a terrible idea. If you really wanted to win World War III, it would be full just go for the win.
I disagree with you fundamentally on
How?
Your levels. So here you go. My point. So Russia invades poorly, but they increase their spending by 10 billion. Russia wins, they increase their spending by 200 billion. Do you see my point?
No.
No, but they're invading.
So if they
they're invading
steamroll, you
poorly.
increase your budget 200 billion and you go full notch.
No,
You
but they're
see them
having almost
invade
that much in
poorly,
sanctions put on them. So
then
it's
you
actually the
invade.
counter.
Yeah. No, but here's what you do. Like long-term strategy, they only invest like maybe 10 billion and they're like, they suck anyway. We're not worried. Yeah, we'll
No one
unify.
thinks
Yeah,
that.
we'll
Literally,
NATO.
no one thinks that. That is
But
the
they're not a
dumbest
big
thing.
deal.
Like, so saying that,
getting ready to leave.
hold up. So saying that, they lost, so they're not a concern anymore, even though they're the leading nuclear
No,
power
I
on
was
the
just
planet.
going outside
Hold up, stop. So
Get
Let him
better
finish.
reception and
stop
also
talking, or I'm
see
going to
something was
mute
working
you.
and it wasn't
Please-
working,
please
so that's why I
stop
kept
talking.
Muted.
Please
so
stop talking.
So if your plan here doesn't seem to work, because if your plan is we're going to attack another nation but lose and look weak so everyone else just stops investing in the military, that's the exact opposite that's going to happen ever.
Yeah, but see, you're misinterpreting me here. Obviously,
What is
people
the
are gonna
benefit?
invest in their
What could they?
military. Obviously, they're going to invest.
Hold
but
up. So here's what I'm missing. Here's what I'm missing. You have given no benefit to Russia at all for taking this strategy. Everything you've listed is things that they're going to lose or costs or bad plans, no matter what. There's no benefit you've added. All you've said is,
Again, the benefit, I'm just going to clearly state it. The benefit is winning World War III. That's the benefit.
that there's no way for them to do that. Everything they do makes it less likely they're going to win. There's no benefit that makes it more likely they're going to win by using a weak force to attack Ukraine. That is the opposite of trying to win World War III. If you're trying to win World War III, the best thing to do is to attack before anybody has any time to react. So in a war, preemptive strikes are usually the best way to try and win it. And so if you're going to give people a lot of warning by attacking another nation, which causes everyone else to start building up their military, that's the opposite of doing anything that could potentially win World War III. And having them imply sanctions on your country that will then destroy you. Well, hold up. So having them imply sanctions on your country so you have less economic power and less ability to grow your military is also the opposite of what you want if you're trying to win World War III. Germany had the better strategy in trying to win the World War, which is build up a huge military, invade as fast as possible with the least warning as possible. That's how you want to win a war.
Yep. Okay, so Blitzkrieg.
Russia already has a huge
think
military.
about
Excuse me, Russia's not at war though. That's not their premise, right?
Hopefully. Well, he's arguing, his argument is that the reason Russia is doing like a weak invasion and deliberately losing is because their plan is to win World War III. That's his argument.
That's
that
basically
doesn't
my
follow.
argument.
Yeah, and all they've done is incurred shit tons of sanctions against themselves, which
Again,
reduces the money
you
in.
guys are pretending like Russia hasn't been sanctioned for the past 25 years, okay?
No,
they're losing their
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. My argument here isn't that they aren't being sanctioned against. My argument here is that if they wanted to win World War III, the correct strategy is not to incur more sanctions and to use a weak attack to seem weak. Those would be counterproductive to trying to win World War III.
That's where we disagree. See, like, where I disagree is you're thinking they should win really, really fast. But think about it like this. Think about it if their goal is not to win World War III right now. Like, think about it if they thought the United States was... I think the United States is, like, still very, very strong. But I think in 20 years, we will be very, very weak. You know, we have the aristocracy bleeding us dry and getting
Okay,
more
let's
and more.
grant that. Let's grant that for us for a
Well,
moment.
let me finish. my
Wait.
overall point.
I don't want to forget about this. So let's say you're right, and that America's going to be super weak in 20 years. Would it be better to attack America then, with or without all of the sanctions, with or without a full military force, with or without all of the other countries in NATO uniting and building a military? It seems like if in 20 years America is going to suck, the better thing to do is just to not invade any country and wait until that happens and then attack, not attack now and give everybody a whole bunch of warning.
You see, that's the thing though, like, if you do it that way, they're going to know you're building up forces regardless, right? So regardless,
No.
Yep.
Like,
yes, you have surveillance footage, man. You can't hide invasion.
that part's fine, but if you literally invade Ukraine and make all of the countries around Ukraine and the UK and NATO now afraid of you and taking a lot of time to be like, oh, we have to consider Russia now, and so they're going to build up a military, that would not have happened if they didn't invade. You want to look as peaceful as possible, look as like you're not going to invade.
I hear what you're saying, but we disagree because now they actually, okay, so Russia used to be like, even now, think about this room, right?
God.
Even before Russia invaded, even before like it did invade, even the week after invaded, everybody was like, Russia, oh my God, they're going to steamroll. Oh my God, they're going to kick it out. Oh my God, Russia's going to win. It's going to be so fast. Now everybody's like, wait a minute. They'll win, but they're kind of weak. I didn't realize they were so weak. Like, do you see how the narrative has changed?
That doesn't people's opinion. People's opinion that Russia is weak does nothing to affect the surrounding countries. They're not like, oh, Russia's weak, we don't have to worry about it. They're like, holy shit, the world's leading nuclear power is attacking another country. We need to be prepared if they decide to attack us, because holy shit, they're a nuclear power. So no one is thinking, oh, they're weak, we don't have to worry about them. Literally not a thing anyone is thinking. No one in the world is thinking that.
Man, I think
I interrupt, and you guys are all wrong.
Nuclear power, like, right? And we have a lot of like nuclear powers. Even Pakistan is a nuclear power now.
Yeah,
Are we worried about Pakistan?
If Pakistan, yes, we are worried about Pakistan. The
Yes,
Pakistan,
I mean, let me
India,
rephrase.
the Pakistan-India conflict is a massive part of international relations, and gee, I sure hope our Pentagon is planning around that. Second of all, if Pakistan was invading European nations in order to recapitulate a Pakistan empire, right? Then yes, we would be concerned. The question is about ambition, right?
I would like to ask.
We know that Russia, for instance, had invaded Georgia previous to this, annexed Crimea previous to this, had invaded the Ukraine prior to this. It is very clear that Russia has has imperialistic ambitions. It wants to recapture former, like what are now satellite states and what previously had been part of the USSR. So it's clear from an international relations perspective that there are going to be other nations at risk. And so long as those other nations want to preserve their sovereignty, they're going to take steps to protect that sovereignty. And because there was maybe not a consensus around the world, but there was this idea that there's no way Russia's going to invade Ukraine, right? They'd be crazy, right? Now, all I'm saying is, from a Bayesian perspective, people have increased their belief that they are at risk from invasion, right?
Okay. Now,
because Russia has demonstrated that they're willing to do it.
Number one, so question to the room. Just quick yes or no, please don't elaborate. Do you believe that in a military win, if you want to occupy a nation, the number one most, really the only strategy is boots on the ground, no matter how much tech, drones, whatever, missiles, the way you win a war is boots on the ground? Yes or no?
No. Shock and surprise be your best bet to start.
Well, no,
you want shock and surprise, you want complete air superiority, and you want to use
like
drones
there's easier ways. Hold up. There's an easier way. All you have to do is destroy the infrastructure of the other place, and they'll lose. So you don't need no one in the area. You don't need any technology in the area at all. If you destroy their infrastructure, their source of food, and they start to starve to death, you've won the war.
Airports.
Okay, so then you turn the entire world against you. Is that your
Russia's
solution?
doing that? Russia is literally doing that right
all
now.
right, it's already been That's like nothing new for Russia. In
That
my
is
opinion.
no. Hold on. So
Overmind.
this is a point
You're
you've made a couple
undermining now.
times. This is a point you've made a couple times, and I think it's just flat out wrong.
Okay, fair.
So it's true that Russia has been sanctioned in the past. It was sanctioned over Crimea, as recently as
And
2014.
the invasion of Georgia in 2009-ish. Go ahead.
So there, in order for your theory to be true, you'd have to think that these sanctions, because you're sanctioning someone who's already had really significant sanctions, the marginal effect of these sanctions should be fairly low, right? But we know
not low,
that
no. But
well, then if the question is whether these sanctions are having an impact, and your response to like TJumps' claim that in fact these sanctions are having an impact, imposing a large significant cost on Russia, your response has been, oh well, they're already sanctioned. But it doesn't matter if they're already sanctioned. What matters is what is the damage of the current sanctions? Are the current sanctions imposing a large cost or a small cost? When you give this argument that they're already sanctioned, it sounds like what you're saying is the current sanctions aren't having much of an effect, and they are.
I disagree.
We know they are.
Fundamentally,
You
so
guys
their
noticed the
currency,
recent sanctions
just watching their
removing our-
currency, it's gone
removing our
down like at
policy
least
and our
40%.
Difficult to hear what you said. There was some crosstalk there.
I'd say, currency-wise, yeah.
I didn't
I could probably buy some nice stuff there with my money.
I don't think anyone was being malicious. I just saying I
don't
didn't
think
hear what
anybody
you
was
said.
being
Yeah,
malicious.
I didn't
You're
mean
all
to. I
excited
just wanted
to
to
talk.
interject around these current sanctions in regards to. Has anybody noticed that they're designed in a way that it removes everybody's privacy around purchasing of properties, for instance?
Oh, you mean like the United States is
you think
saying that, oh my God, Russia's using cryptocurrency, so we should crack down on cryptocurrency, even
Wait,
though
I have no idea.
Wait,
Hold up. I didn't understand that. What do you mean they are cracking down on people's?
They're saying that because Russia.
No, mine. I was talking to Echo. One sec. I was asking Echo what he meant. I didn't understand what Echo meant.
So in the UK, I don't know what's in America, but the recent round of sanctions is that the Russian oligarchs and the powers to be cannot buy property in the UK under like shadow companies, etc.
What is that?
You have to know the name of the owner instead of just their
Well,
company.
I can go further and elaborate on his point. A Russian billionaire.
That's all I know.
They're piercing the veil. They're piercing the veil of corporate anonymity, specifically in the UK, specifically for making certain kinds of real estate purchases.
Yes, and Echo, what was your point?
It impacts everybody, not just Russians.
Yes, and what's your point?
Yeah, true.
Echo, yeah, what's your point?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just saying, Nicola.
So the West is becoming
Let Echo finish. Let Echo finish. Go ahead, Echo.
I can't talk, can I? I cannot talk.
Go ahead, Echo. What was you saying?
Just the West are using the situation in Russia to remove more of our freedoms, our rights.
Sort of. So like they're making implementation because they don't want. Hold up. So yes, Russian oligarchs who are very intimately tied with the government as a whole, if they end up buying or getting power in the UK, then that can be essentially used directly by the Russian government. Therefore, they need to know any kind of personal connection the oligarchs have to these organizations that are owned in the UK. And yes, they're obviously going to implement that as a law for everybody because it would kind of be racist if they said only Russians or whatever. So yes, they're using that for everyone. But I don't see why that's necessarily unexpected. Like in war, this happens all the time. This is a pretty standard thing. So they're not using this as like some kind of malicious means.
And just a further point,
it's a civil liberties question, right? The worry is that like you're never going to let a good emergency go to waste, where there's going to be actors in your government who are going to want to take any opportunity to expand their power. And so you could think that these encroachments, while they make sense during wartime, are going to be hard to push back after the war. I think it's just encouraging a sense of caution around these sorts of
I
issues.
agree.
9/11
fundamentally,
that story.
But
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
kind of reading now.
States and the UK really didn't need very much excuse, but they are using the excuse even
Well,
more.
I want to bring up sin, but I think it's too trivial.
No, it's my
for
turn.
what we're talking
I've
about.
waited so long. Let me finish.
Давай
All right.
завтрашнее.
So, like after 20 years of sanctions, you're gonna prepare your
War's
economy
depressing.
to be able to
Окей, когда
withstand.
придешь, ну.
What?
Хорошо, когда придешь.
Hey, one at a time.
Can I finish? Let me finish. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, so
Okay.
let me be very clear here. Yes, the sanctions are powerful. Yes, the sanctions
he's got a
affect
bit
them.
of
I'm
delay,
not
too.
saying that they're not affecting them, and I'm not saying they're affecting them in a big way. I agree with both those points, but I'm getting at is if your economy is prepared for like 20 years of
So
sanctions,
T-Jump, earlier you did say something about sin that I
like
wanted to ask.
say start purchasing foreign currency reserves in China.
Yeah, could you give me a definition for sin?
Hold on, someone else is talking, buddy.
All right, yeah,
Someone
let me
else is
finish.
talking.
So yeah, what Russia has been doing has been moving its assets from foreign currencies into Chinese yuan, as well as other like
We know this.
non-NATO based
They've cultivated
currency.
strategic
Let me
relationships.
finish. If you have 20 years of sanctions, you are going to learn to divest yourself from places where those sanctions can hurt you. Now, yes, they hurt them really bad right now, but think long term. If you are building an economy that's basically not sanction proof, but can deal with sanctions in a much better way, 10 to 15 years from now, if you really want to go in a big way, then those sanctions will be too little too late and they'll be weak. That's what I'm getting at.
There's no need to trigger the sanctions to do that. Triggering the
Yes,
sanctions.
if you want to
Triggering.
make yourself
triggering a sanction
weak,
One
just hurts
second.
the country, period.
One second. I just love to get this point out if you don't mind.
right.
So let's just take an example, like the SWIFT payment system that Russia got expelled from, right? There's this idea floating around that they're going to have like a Russo-Sino-India currency exchange to make energy purchases easier between these countries in the absence of SWIFT. And that might completely be true, but they could have done that before, right? If the idea is that Russia wants to make themselves sanction proof, there's no need to do that with the sanctions imposed, with all of the cultural costs of Russia being expelled from like soft institutions like the Olympics and that sort of a thing, with all of the hard costs of like you're tanking the ruble, your banks are cut off from the World Bank, so you can't make purchases. Like if you
no
know
one's
you're
buying
getting
your
cut off-
resources.
yeah. I mean, it's completely pointless to use this as a strategy to do that. Russia hasn't made themselves sanction proof enough to prevent this kind of economic collapse, which is imminent.
You have
Oh,
to
and
think
there's
that
another
you're taking
thing.
this into
There's
consideration.
another
though,
thing
with
comes
it.
with these sanctions is if they suspect you may be building up for war, they can actually sanction sending you supplies that could be used for that purpose.
Yeah, okay, I agree.
So you can
they're
actually
already doing that.
you can actually be punished that way. And they
All
are
right, I
not
mean,
a
yep.
completely
If you're
free
hit to
running
your
country.
ruble.
They do require trade with other countries for stuff
think
they
about it-
require every day, such
Think
as
about it this
technology.
way.
You want to know who the largest,
to
one of the largest
appreciate that Russia will have
importers
taken this
of
into
Russia
consideration
is the
already.
Ukraine.
So
it's kind of funny.
destroying your trade partner is really stupid.
Yeah, because you lose all your technology too.
Think about it this way. If you're going to take that big of a hit to the ruble, why not, instead of burning those through a sanction and losing access to a bunch of financial institutions, just take that loss in rubles and use it in an arms deal with the US or an arms deal with other neutral nations who aren't willing to align themselves against you pre-sanction but have now aligned themselves against you post-sanction.
Yeah, you
Spend
could
those
literally
rubles to help modernize your military.
You could inflate the currency. Like you could literally just start buying anything you wanted and just print currency infinitely if you're going to expect a deflation of the currency. So you could just buy anything you wanted at no cost to you.
I was going to say, like, it's
And
Russia's
then
currency. The ruble
massively
is Russia's
increase
currency.
your
They have control
inflation.
over
I
it.
don't
It's
think
not
that's.
even
I mean,
net.
in logic that would work, but not in reality. People would be aware that you're printing out shitloads of money,
Well, no,
especially
that's
oligarchs.
so. Just to clarify, my point here is that if you're if you're expecting to lose, demonetize, or lose the value of your currency, the better way to do that is to, if you expect it, you can artificially inflate it first because you're already going to expect it to lose value.
I would disagree with that statement.
Everybody's
Um,
gonna see that
already
coming.
did that.
Everybody's
Long
going to see
term,
that coming
that's
a
how your
mile.
economy collapses. If you're aware that your currency is going to be devalued, you purchase foreign currency reserves in preparation, not like speed that along.
Yeah, so you purchase as many of them as possible by printing as much money as you can and buying it in segments until it deflates.
Yes, but world governments are going to be
TJumps,
aware of that.
Russia
They're
probably
going to
already
know.
did that. We wasn't aware of it.
I already knew about that.
Doing that
The
right along.
Wait, this
I understand,
analysis
but
is
what I'm trying to,
no.
what
Russia,
TJump is speaking
Russia,
to,
and other
Russia
countries
already
already had massive reserves of foreign currency, especially the American
Not
dollar,
massive.
because yes, massive, because the
Massive.
because of the petrodollar, because of the fact that oil is priced and sold in American dollars.
There we go.
It's been like that
Yeah.
for like 40 years.
So I'm just getting at the long term here. You are you're okay. So you're saying let's all do it when we're nice and powerful. If you are nice and powerful and you appear nice and powerful, and no one in 20 years has been what's the word? No one in 20 years has like thought anything other than, oh my God, they're building up their insanely large military. Think about it in a broad term. Like you have dozens of actors, you have dozens of militaries, dozens of countries. So China sits back. They're like, Russia, all right, we'll take the big hit, but you're going to pay us back. You know, we have a lot of Chinese yuan.
You
We're
wouldn't
going
do
to
it
take
to China.
We're going to look weak because China is like the #1 ally of Russia.
You wouldn't do this to. You wouldn't hand off bad assets to China because you're going to alienate them.
No,
if you're
Exactly.
if you're going, if your plan is I'm going to win World War III with my buddies, China and my like puppet states around me.
India, yeah, good.
If that's your strategy, the question is, okay, like take the time from like 10 years ago until the start of World War III. What you're saying is there's this period before World War III where everyone's going to know that like you're in a wartime standing, active wartime standing because of the invasion to Ukraine, but it's okay for people to know that some amount of time before you actually trigger World War III. That's okay because you're going to be presenting a false face. They're going to have like wrong expectations, so you'll have like a really effective first salvo. That's like that's your position.
That is my
so
position.
You've already conceded that with that position that it's okay for Russia to have some kind of period where people know that they're on an active military footing. What I'm suggesting, people wouldn't know that they're on an active military footing. All you'd know is that they're modernizing their military, right?
Two things.
Here, I'll distill my point down. The signal of invading the Ukraine is a much clearer and much higher magnitude signal of oncoming World War III than replacing military gear from the fucking 70s.
Okay, let me say
1 second. I want to just make
real fast, please.
I want to just add on to what he said. I wanted to add on to what he said a little bit. So, like, if you have a neighbor who has lots and lots of guns, but never attacks anybody, you're probably not going to buy guns in defense. But if you have a neighbor who has like 2 guns and he attacks people, you'll probably buy guns in defense. So even if somebody looks weak but is attacking people, you're more likely to build up your defenses than if they look strong and are not attacking. So Russia just building up their military is not going to have the effect of people building up as much defensive forces as a weak country literally attacking another country. If you have war nearby, go ahead.
Two major points. Number one, to the room, do you not understand that the United States and the UK are like, and the France are like in active military zones, and they have like tacitly invaded like other countries?
We're in the South China Sea. South China Sea as we stand at the moment.
Like, we are a large, powerful force that has invaded multiple other countries. We're in 7 armed conflicts right now. 6 actually. So like, this is all like what I'm getting at. Number one, do you guys believe like Western powers are not doing this? And number two, more importantly, do you believe that do you believe that nations, like especially developed nations, are not aware that someone is going to imminently strike or is imminently preparing? Like they
aren't
know.
aware.
Afghanistan was 9/11 when.
They knew the Ukraine invasion was coming for a month and a half.
The reason they knew the Ukraine invasion was coming was because Russia was literally moving forces to the border. That's the indication.
Even if they hadn't known the Ukraine invasion was coming, Russia has always seen, even back to the old Soviet days, the Ukraine is extremely important to Russia's view of self-sufficiency.
Well, that doesn't matter to his point. That doesn't matter to his point.
Because
I'm going to mute you if you say that again.
Of the oil.
So literally, it doesn't matter
It's necessary. So
I didn't. So it doesn't matter.
Yes,
Wait,
it
let him
does.
finish. He hasn't
It's going to
spoken that
treat the
much. Let him
Ukraine
finish.
as a different matter than other parts of the Balkans and or that part of Europe.
Okay, that literally
Your
matters
turn.
to nothing being said here. So he said,
bullshit.
Okay,
Well,
so
in your
you're
stories,
muted.
I'll finish this point. So
Well,
getting
I wanted
couple
to
of,
say something
the
before that got interrupted.
largest,
So one sec.
okay, go ahead.
So if Russia just stayed, if they didn't move towards the border and didn't make a play like they're obviously going to invade, and was just staying in their country, building up technology, that would not make people worried they were going to invade places. Like America builds up its military and technology all the time. That's not an indication you're going to invade or start a war. That's just an indication, like the other guy said, that it's just building up a military. So you can build up a military without making people or giving people an inclination that you plan to invade, unless you literally move your forces to the border. That's an indication you plan to invade.
Or if you have spies, but go ahead.
Well, everyone has spies. That's not an indication you're going to invade
Yeah,
either.
exactly. So information is going to get out there, but here's what I'm getting at. Okay, so what I'm getting at basically is if you look in the big picture, getting Ukraine's nuclear power plants is very useful if you're the third largest oil producer. You can have energy from nuclear power, and then you can sell your oil and maintain your cost of living and standards of living, blah blah blah. So if you take a large hit on the chin now, and you even bet against it, so you bet against your currency. Like if I were right now, if I could get access to the ruble, I would buy shitloads of it because I'll even say, guests to the room, I don't believe Russia's remotely going to disappear, and I don't believe it's going to like economically destruct or anything like that. So I would definitely purchase the ruble if I could, and it wasn't illegal. But just because it's cheap, you buy low, sell high. But the main point is I would like them to lose. I just I'm afraid I don't know. I have very little information, but I do hope they get wrecked. But at the same time,
it would be cheaper to just build your own nuclear
plan?
power plants. Like they have the ability to build their own nuclear power plants. Why invade a country?
Again, you hit multiple birds with one stone. You reduce, not
Who
reduce,
gives a
you
shit about
slightly
Ukraine in World War III? Who
military
gives a shit?
spending in the nations abroad. But then in 10 years, you massively skyrocket your military budget after
What did the
everybody doesn't
invasion gain
right?
you? Just do the same strategy without the
Okay,
invasion.
again, the invasion, what does it gain you? It gains you two things. It gains you a projection of weakness, and it allows your allies, all of them, to solidify. So you can say, all right, here's what happens if you want to get something in the world. Okay, this
And it
person's
makes
going to
your
be
army
against
bigger.
you. This person's going to push sanctions. This person is going to do this. This person's
Polarizes.
going to do
We
that.
can just say that
Yeah,
it
no, not
polarizes.
polarizes, but I mean,
Yeah.
it gives you a
So the
shitload
problem
of
with
information.
the problem with polarization is that you're also polarizing NATO, and you know who has more money than fucking Chechnya? NATO has more money than Chechnya. Getting Chechnya and fucking like Belarus to go on like a war footing. Wow, they have the GDP of like half of Wyoming, right? They
Okay.
don't matter. They're not going to help you in a fucking world
Let me
war.
ask you a simpler question. What do you think
for
China's
perspective, I'll just add a
reaction to
perspective in this
NATO's
question.
present behavior? How do you think they view it?
What I mean, you mean
Think about
internally or what they've expressed so far?
No, not well. I would love to hear what they've expressed so far, but as
What
the
they've
nation of
expressed so
China,
far is neutrality, where they say both sides.
No. Not what they're saying. I mean, like, pretend for a moment. Obviously, we can't, but pretend for a moment you are ahead of the Chinese military.
Yeah, China doesn't like NATO. China does not like that the other countries.
China doesn't like NATO. China doesn't want NATO to expand. I don't think I think the most interest that China has in this is as a test, like a litmus test for how NATO would respond to Taiwan.
There you go. Well,
I think that's
good.
the most interest that they have. I don't think that what they're going to be doing is like, oh, okay, Russia, let's go into World War III. I don't think that like they're getting jazzed up in the way that your polarization analysis would suggest.
Okay, not they're getting jazzed up because I would imagine they're already making those plans. It's not like they're getting
I think
emotional
they're
about it.
secretly
I
planning for
think
World
they're
War
more
III. To
yes,
start World War III.
No,
not to start, to just win it.
It's to defend against World War III. That's what they're doing. They're trying to situate.
China doesn't have to
themselves so they
worry
can
about being
defend.
invaded.
Russia would.
Why
Oh,
not?
okay, let me put that another way. They do have to worry about being invaded because they're a superpower or they're approaching a superpower, but NATO isn't going to invade China. NATO is not going to invade China in
I
a war of
mean,
aggression.
think about what
How
you're
do you know
saying,
that?
though. Think about what you're
I
saying.
just
Russia
NATO
I
is
just think
right
can't.
it's
next
There's
to
I
no.
think it's
China.
It doesn't have invasion
unlikely.
clauses.
I think
It
it's
doesn't have
Okay.
attacks.
unlikely because they
Well,
don't
yeah, but
have
Britain can, Britain
they
can,
don't
and
have an
America can.
ambition. I think it's because
That's what I
NATO
think we
doesn't.
disagree.
Goodness
But
gracious!
listen,
One at a
I
time,
think
NATO,
please.
Defensive
NATO
act.
I
can't.
think
One
China
at
is
a
love
time,
can.
watching
please.
NATO be
I would
like
love
us
to
versus
answer your
them.
question, but
Go ahead.
someone else is talking.
NATO
Okay.
can't go in, but individual states can.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think that like Germany is interested in trying to occupy or annex China. In the
If,
same,
if China moved on
Russia is interested in China's interested in annexing Taiwan back. Russia
yes,
is
and if they
interested
try,
in
and if they try
annexing
and do that,
Ukraine back. So yes, I think that Taiwan has to worry about China invading. I don't think China has to worry about. I think the probability that Germany is going to invade
no, Britain.
unilaterally invade
No, I don't.
China. I think the
Britain,
probability that
Britain.
UK is going. The UK has a tiny
Yes, they
military.
will.
There's no way
Yes,
they
they
do it
will. You're ignorant.
Okay, can I
unilaterally.
say something?
There's no
The
way.
only possible way.
Yes, they will.
So the only possible way.
You've been watching too much James Bond, dude.
No, listen.
All right, again.
MI6 is going to go in.
Has any interest in a war? Neither
Britain,
do
no one in the UK, no one in the UK is saying let's
doesn't
start the
matter.
British Empire back up.
Again,
There's
yes.
no, it's not.
It doesn't matter.
It has been a
Here's where
political goal of
No, you're missing
Putin
it, man.
for like 30 years to rebuild the USSR. Right?
So
We've seen that.
How do you know
we've
that?
seen that demonstrate.
How do you know that?
Because we've seen it demonstrated by
How do you know
his.
that?
I'm trying to answer you right now.
Yeah.
So
Why do you
we've seen
think?
it.
Why do you
We've
think
seen
Britain
it
would do
demonstrate.
anything if Taiwan was taken?
Okay.
Well, so
Just
I
let him
want to
finish.
one sec. I want to see over the
know-
mind for over the mind. What I want to see is I want you to see.
All right, well, dude,
one
don't
sec.
interrupt.
One sec.
Let
One
the
sec.
guy who was talking
One sec.
first, and then he can ask you.
It's my room. So what I want to see is I want you to go through like the art of war from Sun Tzu, and I want to tell you which one of these are actually benefited by what Russia is doing. Because if you go through them, most of them are most of them are contradicted. So most of the things Russia is doing, if you go through like the art of war or any kind of war-based strategy, is destroying any chance they have at World War III. That's essentially what they're doing with this. Is they have no chance in World War III from this whatsoever. So if you could show me in the art of war, I want you to show me in the art of war, like which one of these things are benefited, because everything you're saying goes against every known tactic in war strategy.
No, two
Yes.
strategies, and it's been a long time since I read, but I remember two. Number one, don't be where your enemy expects you to be, and appear weak when you are strong, and appear strong when you are weak.
Yes, so that would mean not attacking.
Paraphrasing. Yeah.
So that'd be not attacking. It's the
again,
opposite.
I don't know. I just think, Russia appeared to be strong, and they have disabused a lot of people of that.
How do they appear strong?
Because we thought they were going to like steamroll the Ukraine, and they obviously did not at all.
So
The whole world thought they were going to steamroll the Ukraine. Do you see how that works? Like the whole world's like, oh my God, the Ukraine's going to be over in like 2 days, and then nobody thinks that.
But we're aware.
Okay, so in war, typically what you do is you bomb the shit out of places that you're gonna conquer, and then you move your troops into it. Russia did not do that at all. Okay.
I know.
Well,
they can't do
Russia's
that because they're trying to
Air
push
Force. Russia's.
well, I mean, they're doing it in Kiev now.
I think
they didn't do that because it's a peacekeeping mission.
Your analysis
So they-
requires
How peacekeeping works.
requires something like Russia to have a lot of hidden military assets, so that like
No.
the base that you present. I think it does, and I'll give you a reason why.
I'll let you finish. I'll explain why, but go ahead.
Okay. So if we're aware of Russia's military assets, like we're aware that they have an air force, they haven't been very active. There's questions about why haven't they been using this, right?
Interesting.
So
no drone strikes either.
So-
Very minimal.
yeah, so I think the idea that Russia's going to invade because then people will ask questions about why they didn't use the air force. I don't think that the gain in like, oh, there's some sort of mystery here. I don't think that has much strategic value when compared to the degree
They're
of like
throwing
hardened resistance that you're going to have from other countries, both in NATO and who are NATO adjacent, who are now going to be more interested in joining NATO, like Finland
Do you want me
has
to tell you a
been.
top tip on this one, just so you
Okay,
can get a grasp on it?
let me respond with two
They are
questions.
throwing
Number one,
artillery
Plus,
at
you
each
want the
other.
infrastructure.
what if first of all, you don't need to hide all your military or very much of it. You just need to hide a winning military strategy, like one or two pieces of hardware that you know are very, very
But they're not hiding
like,
it from you,
no,
right?
let me finish.
You
Let
know
me
about
finish.
it.
Let me finish. No, I'm not aware of it. I'm just saying, what if like Russia and China realized that most, or they developed something that made most of modern day, especially older modern day
Why would they hold it
weapon
back?
really obsolete? That was the word I was looking for. Obsolete. What if they developed a simple weapon that made tanks obsolete? Then what?
Yeah,
Then
this is
you invade. Then you look weak. Then
This
you
is science
use
fiction.
up all your obsolete
This is science
machinery.
fiction. You're writing science fiction right now.
Science
Yes.
fiction. Science fiction.
Do you have any? Do you have
So,
any
like,
reason
weapons
to
have
think
not
that
been
this
developed
super?
that have made things
Do
obsolete.
do you have some reason to think this is the case?
Well,
I could think that
they
maybe
already
they invented lightsabers.
Wait, hold up.
They already
Even,
invented
wait.
lightsabers.
Stop. So even if they did, let's say they invented some new technology that can just wipe out all tanks. What possible benefit is there to attack people first?
Portable man pads.
No, so they can't wipe out all tanks.
Let 'em
So
finish, yeah.
even if they did, even if they invented some magic new technology, there's still no benefit to starting a pre-war and get lots of sanctions to lose economically before implementing this thing. So if they wanted to start World War III, they'd still be better off by not telegraphing their moves and starting a preemptive war that causes everyone to build up their military. Literally the worst decision they could make is to start a
But
pre-war.
imagine, okay, but just imagine this scenario while you're responding to me. Imagine that this weapon is like only known by like 10 people and you just murdered all of them and you set in place the buildings necessary to mass produce this, but you haven't made a single prototype yet.
Who do you see starring in this film that you're writing?
Okay,
Who do
it's
you
funny,
imagine
it's
is the lead
a
actor?
thought experiment. It's a thought experiment. Just stick with it here. Stick
Sure,
with it.
sure.
So you have a
That's
bunch
exactly
of
what I was
obsolete
thinking.
machinery.
He's writing a
You have
movie.
a
That's
bunch-
exactly what I was thinking.
Okay. All
For
right.
an hour.
All right. Oh, you're funny. But yes, so you have a bunch of obsolete machinery, and you don't want people to panic when you start building up your military again, especially with this new age technology.
So let's attack another country. That'll make sure people don't panic when we build up our military. Genius. That is genius. The best way to make people not panic is by attacking someone. Genius.
I asked him ages ago if this was a bluff, and he was saying the whole
think
thing's
of
a bluff. He was basically
if
calling
you
it a bluff.
produce billions of dollars a year and you lose like a few not a few, but like 100 tanks, some armored vehicle, 100 armored vehicles, like
Thousands of
things that are
troops.
no longer useful.
Or you
And
could
then
just
you
throw
start
them away.
growing
You literally just park them in a
You-
corner and not blow them up, and that would work just fine.
Well, you could
Okay,
sell them.
but you have to maintain
Or
them,
you could
and
sell
how
them.
would you if you're not weak? The whole world.
You could
literally
literally
is zombie.
There's this thing
When
called
was
a
the last time we
junkyard.
threw
So
artillery at each
hold
other?
up. There's this thing called a junkyard. There's lots of old tanks are in this junkyard where America puts them when they don't want to maintain them. Russia could just do the same thing instead of starting a war.
And then
Well,
we
it can
would be like, oh my
They're
God,
throwing
they have like
artillery at each
1,000
America just leaves them behind.
1,500 tanks that they could turn on at
battalion.
any time.
No, we can tell the difference between a storage field for dead tanks and new tanks. Like we wouldn't count. Oh, look, they have a whole bunch of tanks in a storage field. They have this many tanks. Like no military does that.
it's just-
Military
I really
intelligence
don't
isn't like, oh look at all the stored tanks Americans have in their junkyards. There's like 1 billion tanks America has. No one says that. No one is that stupid.
I hope so.
Like, do you think Russia? Do you think Russia is like looking at the storage fields of planes? It's like, oh, look at all these planes America has that are just sitting out in the rain and snow taking damage. Clearly, they're just a huge threat to our military because they're going to use these.
Well, I mean, at the same time, like you don't want to put like a $30 million tank in like a rust, situation.
Yes,
But,
a better
I don't
strategy is
really
to
know.
send it to another country to get blown up. Genius.
Yes. Only if you've developed the weaponry that makes it obsolete. In the new
Yes,
stage
so
of
let's
warfare,
waste
and then you
millions of
prepare your
dollars.
partners.
Let's waste millions of more dollars to transport it to get blown up instead of just parking it.
Yes,
Genius.
but as opposed to what? What do you do with it? Like if it has no other use.
Can I just express
Can
my
I
point
call
about
Uncle?
the artillery?
Can I call
Well,
Uncle and say he's
TJumps,
right?
What,
No,
Echo wanted to say something, I think.
Learn.
Was
You
that
know, you just
Echo?
want to learn.
Joe, I think you're missing the point
some
on this one,
opinions.
fella. They are throwing artillery at each other. Like this war in the Middle East, in the Ukraine, it's like a Stone Age war, dude. They're not using drones, like you say, minimal tanks. They're throwing artillery. They're throwing artillery at each other, fella. They're not.
They do talk about like
hang
some
on.
drone
I
strikes.
speak a little bit
like,
slower. Doesn't mean you get to interject.
Ukraine
okay?
got a few.
Oh, wait,
Turkish
let him let him finish.
They're
Go ahead,
not
Echo.
fighting this war like it's World War III, dude. They've kept it
Yeah.
on the level, should we say?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay?
That would be very
They're
stupid.
throwing
Mind. Let him finish. Let him finish.
Literally
Russia
2
are
seconds.
Russia is basically emptying their stocks of artillery rounds and rockets and stuff are about to go out of date.
What?
Literally go out of date.
So that's
Past their
literally
sell-by date.
a stupid idea. So they could literally just put it on a shelf or trash it. There's no reason to shoot it at somebody to start a war.
Well, there is a
Do you realize if Russia take Ukraine, they double their population? Do you realize
That does nothing to help them. Doubling their population doesn't help them build their military.
population if World War III?
Just something to say that instead of like all those people, a lot of people are saying that what would they do if they're not using it? If it's better to just empty their stocks. No, it's not. They would easily sell it to lesser nations. That would be much more beneficial than just shooting it.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying.
That's actually a valid point.
Like they could
I don't know
literally
who
just
you
sell it.
sell it
There's
to.
lots of
World
nations who would
Cannot
buy it.
sell it. You can't sell a rocket if it's gone past its sell-by date, you donut.
Yes, you can. Are you kidding
No,
me?
well,
But literally, most of the musicians. Hold up. Most of
Just sell it on a discount.
Stop. So weapons work way past their sell-by date. They don't stop working, once they get past the sell-by date. And
So
literally, a lot of the weapons that are sold
tragic.
to third world nations are weapons that have passed their sell-by date. So that yes, you can sell those. Does happen a lot.
All right. Well,
There's a marketplace for surplus government weaponry, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys worried the rockets are going to get moldy? What's going on here?
No, like the rocket components could become inert after.
No,
The solid fuel might decay. But.
Yeah, their chips are just going to like turn to putty. Like
usable or reduce its effectiveness or reduce.
no, so that's not how weapons work. So the reason weapons lose their sell-by date is when you get a new technology and you don't want to maintain the old technology to maintain it. It's not going to decay and stop working. It's because you have new things that are better. So the old things get cost. They don't stop working.
Okay.
Like you can still shoot bullets from World War II.
Rounds go off.
Sounds very logical.
The solid rocket fuel goes off. The explosives go off, and they don't work. And basically, the rate of success goes down dramatically.
But not to zero. So they're still usable.
They're still usable.
That is
Yes, they're still
only
usable. Of course.
if
Like 1 in 10 might work.
Well, no,
It
they
makes them,
definitely don't go bad. They
valueless.
don't go bad that fast at all. You can still use weapons from World War II. They still work today.
Yeah, shit that goes bad is like corrosive primers. That goes bad, but nobody but Russia uses that.
Exactly.
Are you at that?
And they're even out. They're phasing all that stuff out anyways.
Yeah, they're throwing it at Ukraine, dude. Get rid of it.
Yeah, well, Americans are buying it too, just because it's dirt cheap and there's a big AK craze in the U.S. and all the aficionados are burning through all that ammo. Like Russia's still pumping out they're pumping out better ammo, and they've completely phased out corrosive primers. So with rockets, it's the same thing. They're phasing out anything with corrosive materials and going for all the cleaner burning shit.
But you can literally sell second, third generation tanks to
So
anywhere in
the
Africa.
argument that they're just emptying the shelves because they have got something new doesn't make sense.
Instead of throwing it away, let's just shoot it at people. Let's just bomb a different country with our old stuff because it's old.
But you are still getting stuff. You understand? You're using obsolete weaponry to gain nuclear power, to gain an interest in the local population near you.
The only thing
And can we
really
just throw
saying
out
that
some
they're
facts
doing-
here? Wait, quick
the
facts.
only thing-
Let's throw out some facts. Population of Russia is 145 million. Population of Ukraine is about 45 million. Go.
What does the population matter? Like we could take Africa and add a few billion people. Population doesn't really do anything to help us.
Yeah, the population comparison is a factor. If we're going to go into full scale war, then yeah, Russia's got the whole attrition tactic on
Russia,
its side.
yes, and Russia also is the largest landmass. They control the most amount of land in the world. But go ahead.
Yeah, good job. You control a tundra.
Yeah.
with
Also,
Russia.
guys. If fucking Ukraine joined NATO, Russia would get backed into a corner, wouldn't it? Because then Ukraine could take back Crimea.
You're thinking too logically. Evil is evil is actually talking about the actual problem right here. We're talking about like a World War III kind of doomsday Bond movie. So
20 years
you're being too logical, Evil. Like you're talking about like the real actual problems.
All right, don't be rude, but I would love to hear some facts. Facts are nice, whatever they may be, related. But all right, so China has 1.4
Another fact,
billion.
a cool fact. Wait, guys, a related fact is that it
Have
took.
you seen the map of Russia like turned upside down? How
Guys,
Russia's here and the flanks that they could possibly
Russia
be
has
attacked
had
on.
4
How open
You want
Ukraine
to give
was
your
to Russia.
facts. I give my facts first. It took Germany and the Soviet Union 35 days to take Poland. That was with like industrial power of Germany and shit. And to like fucking surprise of having 2 countries against one. It took them 35 days. So that it's like Russia isn't is it that?
All my point is if you made like bullets that can like somehow pierce tank armor, or I'm not going to say it just because I don't have the
You can
idea.
blow a tank in half. You can blow a tank in half with a shaped water charge. Tanks are
Okay, yeah,
antiquated.
again,
Tanks are antiquated. Tanks are antiquated because they are just like just to fill the void.
Okay, so here's long
Roll
term
up
where I'm
behind
getting at.
winning the war.
It's called an
This is why
RPG.
Russia are using artillery and tanks to fighting this war like it's World War II.
Yeah, like RPGs, rocket propelled grenades.
Again, but yes, this would
Yeah,
be
I know,
going
but-
on my point that tanks are becoming more and more obsolete, and the thousands upon anti-tank missiles that they were handed to for free might be a sign that tanks aren't really as necessary as they used to be.
Yes, and the most
So if you
efficient way to
lose a
dispose of them
shitload
is to
tanks
start a
and
war.
armored vehicles, getting a slightly good objective, appearing weak, and preparing yourself 10 years or 20 years from now for the major war that's actually going to matter for energy, for resources, for food. We have water shortages, energy shortages. We have a lot of fucking problems right now.
No one coming out of this thinking Russia's massively weak. No matter what the result,
Really?
the result is.
Yes. No one is thinking that.
I maybe think that.
No one. That is a problem with your argument. No one thinks Russia's weak, dude.
I
You
don't know,
don't
man.
think that
They're
nukes-
losing. You don't think
nukes still
losing
a
is kind
real
of a
potential?
embarrassment?
Ukraine
Not
seems to be
losing,
kicking their
but,
ass.
not winning in like 3 days.
Yeah. So let's assume all of the Russian military are completely
have no money.
incompetent. Let's assume just every single Russian soldier is stupid and just can't hit anything. They have nuclear missiles. No one thinks Russia is weak.
No one wants to use nuclear missiles. Okay.
Russia's going slow, bit at a time. Let's just
Okay.
use the
Imagine
reality.
you can't use
North
nuclear
Korea
missiles
has
for a
nukes.
second,
You think
like,
they're weak.
because if you use them, you'll be bombarded into
Obvious,
oblivion
Russia's
and
going
life on
slowly.
Earth. So let's assume that having nukes does not make you appear strong.
It definitely
That's
does.
one thing you can't do. You can't assume. All right.
But
That's
listen,
fair,
dude,
yeah.
it's obvious. Look, the bearing is that Russia's not weak. Okay, it's strong nature. It's got nuclear missiles that can
I
fly through your
disagree
letterbox.
with both of your
A
points.
billion miles. It doesn't matter what you think. That's the reality of it. Yeah?
Also true.
So it's obvious. So it's obvious that Russia is going slowly, fighting this war like it's World War II.
Well,
Tanks
I
and
don't
artillery.
think it's that they're going
Why do
slowly.
you think that is?
Again, I think it's they just anticipated to be a lot more successful than they were. I think they thought they were going to steamroll Ukraine like America steamrolled Iraq, and they didn't expect Ukraine to be able to put up such a good defense. And so they just didn't invest as many military resources because they didn't expect to need as many military resources. And so
That I disagree with.
that seems to be like the more rational explanation.
I think Russia are doing this intentionally, completely intentionally.
I think they
expected
expected Ukraine to be weaker, but you can adjust with strategy, which they have not done. They've just gone into peace talks.
It's almost like the Ukrainian generals understood Russian tactics somehow.
They were preparing for it.
Like
they've
they
been
were
fighting.
trained similarly. It's so weird.
Yeah, but it's also true, like how Russia would probably be like aware of these trainings, and they would probably be aware of like how they're gonna like fundamentally do in a war.
Wait,
I
how is
think they
this?
would have
How is
all-
this different from the invasion of Afghanistan? Like, how is what tactic here is different from them
Are you
invading
talking
Afghanistan?
about Russia's
Yes.
invasion failed
Yep.
of Afghanistan?
Yep.
Because it's in
One
Europe,
second.
right?
No, I mean like
why did
tactically.
Russia not?
Their military
Why
usage and tactics seem to be the same in both. They seem to be failing in both. I don't see why this one is some kind of super conspiracy for World War III and Afghanistan was somehow not, even though it's the exact same tactics.
Wait,
Why did Russia not take enough fuel?
Side?
Why
Did he
did
attack from all
Russia
sides?
not take enough fuel and food for the soldiers?
Again, we kind of harped on that. That was a bit because allegedly, you have logistical issues, and yes, you have the fuel. You can't get the fuel to the tanks, so problemo.
So yeah, it seems like the same thing.
And
like,
food?
Yes, also logistical
also
problem.
same logistical. If your trucks cannot resupply and your supply lines are destroyed by drones or other issues, then yes, you would appear like you have no fuel when in fact you have a lot of fuel. It just can't get to where it needs to go.
Doesn't it seem like in the conversation all of us are making excuses why Russia aren't doing better than they should be doing?
No, I think it's pretty obvious. I think it's pretty obvious at this stage that Russia are going slowly because they could like obliterate a whole city like in one night. So what that tells you is they don't actually want to kill everybody. They don't want to kill everybody.
Oh
They
yeah,
see
he
them
could
as
have
Russia.
sent a whole lot in, and like you say, obliterate the shit out of them.
It could obliterate it. It could obliterate it. Look,
I agree.
Wait, shut up. Shut up. I don't want it to be a situation where people are pinning this war on Putin, making it Putin's war. Forget that. Get that out of your head. It's got nothing to do with Putin.
He's got Belarus, Serbia, Kazakhstan. He's got other allies.
Russia.
Like you say, he could have sent everybody in, taken the place like that. He could have obliterated the whole of Europe if he wanted to.
Yeah, but isn't he doing it proportionally?
He has a strategy laid out he's not revealing it, right?
He doesn't know.
He's not going to rise to the bait. He's not going to rise to the bait of the propaganda of the Ukrainian people are under from the West at the moment to take up arms and needlessly die in an artillery attack.
Don't you think he's just taking like baby steps so he doesn't get a huge reaction from the world?
Exactly.
He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to get nuked, does he?
Huge.
He already got it.
Yeah, so
I
I
think
think,
it's huge.
you'd be aware that the moment like even 10 tanks cross a what do you call it? Like I can't even think of the word right now. But 10 tanks on Ukrainian soil is like going to be a major overreaction. I think anyone can assume that with half a brain, right?
It's baiting the Americans in. Baiting the Americans in.
If you get into Ukrainian borders, it's going to be considered an invasion, and you're going to have a reaction no matter what.
But you want a lower reaction than a reaction of carpet bombing a city.
Oh yeah, no, and that's not
You
logical.
don't want the
So
reaction
can we
of.
stop discussing that? Like, obviously, you can carpet bomb a place, but it defeats the entire purpose of war, which is to gain resources. If you destroy,
it could be he's just trying to do a slow burn on the Ukrainians.
You go after the economy, you go after the energy resources, but if you carpet bomb,
It doesn't want to kill them.
Potential, and you waste
He
the
thinks
entire
they are
reason
Russian.
why you go to war.
Well, it could be he's just trying to coax NATO into engaging. That way you can say,
Yeah, exactly.
see, told you.
Yes,
Power hungry NATO.
Thank you.
There's a bit
That's
of
what I'm getting
that
at.
too.
So
And
you can be like, look, China, look, India, look at how unfair this is. Look at how like all the Western nations are all just lining up against us, and it's totally unfair, even though most of them are occupying other nations. That's my point. That's what I'm getting.
Then he's got 300 years of Russian history to tell them, like, see, told you the West can't keep their fucking hands off of us.
Yeah, why do you think Zelensky, he's not going, oh yeah, can you give me more of this, more of that, and keep on asking for help and shit?
Yeah, so like think about it like this. You have 1.4 billion in India, 1.4 billion in China. I don't know, 145 million in Russia, but you have a shitload of land for all those billions of people. And tanks are now more and more obsolete. Now 2,000 things to the Ukraine can stop all those armored vehicles and tanks. Now imagine equipping 2 billion people, or 1 billion, let's be realistic here. Imagine equipping like 500 to 600 million active military men with those very same anti-tank missiles, or even a cheaper version. Maybe you need 6 or 7 shots to take it out. Do you understand how tanks might be obsolete and how wasting them now to get like a lot of benefit?
Well, that's probably why Russia's been focusing more on like the new generation fighters, air superiority.
They have no air superiority. Like, where are they? Maybe they don't want to waste them in this fight.
They're not engaging in an air war right now.
So you got to ask yourself, why? Why?
Because they're taking it very slowly to make sure the reaction against
Slowly.
So I think
slowly. They don't want to kill everybody.
Yeah. Can we agree though that like the whole like taking things slow is like very logical. It's very new age. Like they don't want to go into Ukraine, killing everybody and like turning everybody in Ukraine against them. Can we agree on
No,
that?
it makes sense if the goal is to coax a reaction out of NATO. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I know, but in any situation, can we agree that a Russian
being
invasion of
humanitarian?
Ukraine is not going to be like a like kill everyone scenario or destroy everything scenario? Can we all agree on that at least?
I mean, they are like shelling civilian centers and like preventing
they are,
evacuation.
yes, but
There's
in a
news
very light
stories,
basis.
Human Rights
If you look
Watch,
at
Amnesty
Western news,
International. A lot of these places are reporting like war crimes, firing on civilians, that kind of a thing. So I think if your view is that Russia is holding off on
Look, you
airstrikes
can find
in order
examples
to
for anything.
preserve the civilian population of Ukraine, I think they're taking other
Let him finish.
actions. I think they're taking other actions that show that they're not
Yes,
that
yes, okay.
interested in minimizing.
You are simply a
civilian
distraction, okay? Because if you, America, back out and go and yeet on over to Taiwan, here's where they're going to come back out with a full force and go and attack Ukraine again, okay?
I'm sorry. Yes, I
didn't follow
understand sort of your point. Like you're saying most of the Western nations are just allegedly supplying like arms. So what's your overall point with the Taiwan situation?
So, sorry, I just wanted to interrupt for a second. I gotta go, but I wanted to thank you guys for coming to my room and hanging out.
Thank you, dude.
So-
Wait, can you friend me? I like you.
Sure. Send me a friend request. I don't really use Discord that much. Go ahead.
What's
Also,
your name?
TJump. It's the name of the channel, the room. Also, check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/TJump. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.
TJump.
See ya.